Hey guys. This is part 8 of What If Naruto Can Level Up. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 22. Are you kidding me? 4 days later. Keep moving, Pinky! Anko barked out and earned herself a groan of protest from Sakura. The girl's progress was slow but steady. Not as great as her two teammates, as the girl didn't exactly have the years of endurance and muscle memory they possessed. It would take some time, but if she pushed herself and kept it up, she'd most likely get decent result by the time they left. Maybe not what Anko had wanted, but the girl could still surprise her. Many often said dedication and hard work would beat prodigious talent every time when performing a task. That was a load of bullshit in Anko's mind. Hard work and dedication played an important factor in getting stronger, but didn't always mean you'd become stronger than a prodigy or stronger than others. The only times it did occur were when prodigies got bored and stopped pushing themselves to their limit. That was one of the many problems when you were standing at the very zenith of the ninja hierarchy of power and skill. One gained the mentality that there were no more challenges or boundaries that could be crossed any longer. They no longer had anyone to challenge them, or push themselves further. They stopped training and let their otherwise impeccable skills become dull. Thud! Oh wow! A sweat Sakura nursed her soon-to-be bruised backside. Luckily the fall hadn't been too high, but the ground was by no means soft. You know the drill. Anko earned another groan of protest as Sakura got back up and started from square one once again. Anko sighed as she overlooked Team 7's training. It was evident that little by little they were making some progress each day, though said progress was slow compared to her team. Then again, they don't have a teammate with an ability that speed ups the learning curve. But this is bullshit. I shouldn't be babysitting someone else's genin. Anko was less than pleased with Ataki. The man had explained that he had been trying to teach them team exercises so they could work well together. The man stated, "What good is learning techniques when they were prone to accidentally use them on each other?" Communication and trust was just as important as knowing jutsu for a ninja. Anko had begrudgingly admitted the man had a decent point. Still didn't exempt the lazy ass for not teaching him anything else. Other than team exercises, the man had made his team do basic drills such as jogs, taijutsu refinement, and a few other things. Not branching off from there was where everything went to shit. Learning the tree climbing exercise should have been taught during the first few weeks in Anko's mind. Even learning a single D or C rank technique would have been somewhat acceptable in her books. The woman mentally put a large emphasis on somewhat. Anko mostly had them do the chakra control exercise and then decided to relieve her boredom by throwing kunai at them. Many would explain their reasons for such actions, but not Anko. Though it was mostly to increase their ability to dodge and up their speed. While Sasuke and Kiba were much faster and had better reflexes than Sakura, even they weren't exempt from the cuts and scraps. The TNI specialist was seriously wondering if Kakashi lived up to his reputation in the bingo books. It also made her wonder what changed in the man. Years ago she didn't hear the end of Yugao's bitching and moaning on how hard he pushed her and the new Umbu recruits to the point many had quit or transferred. Anko didn't know why Kakashi's ethic as a trainer and instructor turned to shit, but she didn't like it. Anko wondered if it was emotional baggage that he carried over from his own genin team days. She was no psychologist like Inoichi, but she was decent at understanding certain individuals. Naruto was an example for one. Shinobi had different ways to cope, some better than others. Asuma took up smoking, Kurenai developed a cold persona, Kakashi read smut and took on his dead teammates' traits, and Guy trained till he dropped. Kurenai and Guy's methods were some of the better ones, though Guy sometimes took it too far. Despite his surreal stamina and endurance, more than once she heard how he had to be rushed to the hospital for treatment. But regardless of this, Kakashi needed to get his ass in gear. Anko wasn't one to squeal, tattle or rat to authority like a schoolyard pussy, but he had lives depending on him. Just like I do with my brats. The woman hadn't had the chance to really train or teach her team anything new at the moment. They were better prepared than the others, but Anko felt she needed to prepare them even more. Progress for her team was slow at the moment. Anko had to hand it to the corrupt son of a bitch. Gato was smart in covering his ass. Then again, the man had lasted this long without others knowing. While Naruto, Ino, and Hinata found some bits and pieces here and there on the man, it wasn't enough. Bark! Huh! Anko was mildly surprised when she saw Kiba's prone form in the large Ninken's mouth. Beside Hadamaru was Akamaru, and the small white-furred pup could only look on helplessly. What's going on? Bark! Bark! GGGRRR, bark! Yeah, I got none of that. Anko had a good relationship with some, but that didn't equate to her knowing how to speak dog. Some she understood, but it wasn't that much. He said that Kiba-san tried to follow Naruto-san and participate in the mission rather than do, and I quote, boring as hell chakra control shit. End quote. Midori translated. The snake summoner merely groaned, ordered the boy to be dropped, and then told Hato go guard Tazuna on the bridge. What part of come back here after you're done helping Naruto don't you understand? She snarled, and Kiba merely looked away. The action didn't sit well with the woman, and Kiba was promptly backhanded by the purple-haired Kunoichi. Anko continued to glare at Kiba before commanding him to start his exercise. The Kunoichi didn't have time for this crap and made a note to deal with his insubordination later. While her actions seemed harsh, it was basically how the Inuzuka dealt with disobedient younglings. It helped them assert authority and showed them their place. It was a practice Anko had been taught by the boy's mother. Just for that stunt you can forget hunting for game again, Anko shouted and heard Kiba curse. But the woman didn't care. It was the boy's own fault for not listening really. Actions had consequences, and Anko could not afford a genin to endanger the whole team just because he was bored. She thought the problem fixed when she sent him with Naruto, but now knew better. Due to a food shortage in Nami, Anko had ordered Naruto and Kiba to hunt game and use them as leverage. It sounded cruel given the situation of the country's people, but it was lesser evil if they were to get rid of Gato. Plus, it was done to loosen some of the people's tongues and to gather more information. Nami was known for its natural resources, craftsmen, and fishermen. However, while hunting in the sea was one thing for them, hunting inland not so much. Some could do it, but they only did it for themselves and their families. It was one of the reasons how Gato managed to take over. The man had persuaded the people that his company and resources would assist Nami in becoming a much more profitable country. Being ignorant to his ways and hidden agenda, the populace had fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. With the waters being monitored and few being allowed to fish, many were forced to hunt in the woods with little success. Naruto and Hadamaru were decent trackers, the latter more so due to natural instincts, so it was helping them gather more info. However, despite learning what was known as the tracking skill because he hunted game and followed Gato's men, Kiba was the better tracker. But better tracker or not, the boy had much to learn, it seemed, such as discipline. Kakashi wasn't lying when he told her his team had problems. Then again, the man was used to training Umbu level and personality type individuals instead of genin. Those guys better be having better luck than I am. She hoped and prayed her team found something soon. Despite how she acted off duty, Anko took missions seriously, with D-rank being the obvious exception. But even then she wanted this crap fest to end soon. Mostly it was because of the potential danger. Anko wasn't arrogant most of the time, and knew that the only reason why she got the upper hand on Zabuza was because he was caught off guard. The main reason Kakashi was so drained was because his overuse of the Sharingan and being caught in the Suiro no Jutsu, water prison technique. According to Naruto's gamer ability, it allowed masters of the technique to drain a person's chakra and add it to their own. In a straight fight she'd probably last 5, maybe 10 minutes against the Zabuza if she didn't include Midori. With Midori she'd have a greater chance, but her large size made her an easier target, and the sword he wielded was capable of cutting her. Despite the serpent's tough hide, she wasn't impenetrable. A summon's large and intimidating size was just as much a weakness as it was a strength. Though even the smaller and less powerful ones had their uses. One of them she had used to deliver a message to Konoha and inform the Hokage. Though not as quick as Midori, the serpent would most likely get there within a day or two depending on the situation. Though it was a long shot, the woman hoped they'd get back up. Anko had no doubt that the mission could take a turn for the worst. Elsewhere. Thank you. By Kami-sama, thank you. A woman who was now nearing on the verge of tears expressed her gratitude to the young man before her. The meat from the boar would be enough to feed the stomachs of herself and her children for quite a few days. I don't know how to repay you. I don't need money, but information will do, he told her. Information? It was evident by the look on her face that she was honestly not expecting that. What kind of information? Information on Gato. He elaborated, and the woman froze somewhat. Naruto wasn't beating around the bush at the moment. Getting the info they needed was slow as hell. Unfortunately, many were very reluctant to share any information on Gato for fear of retaliation should it be lead back to whoever talked about him. I'm sorry, but please, anything you can tell me to help make this country better again, he said. The woman merely chuckled mirthlessly. Tears that held back were now freely falling from her face. You sound like my husband did. Ah, shit. It didn't take a genius to realize her husband was obviously dead. Look, I'm sorry, No, it's fine. You're one of the ninja helping Tazuna, right? The question wasn't an accusation, but Naruto prepared himself should he be forced to take drastic measure. Loathed, as he wanted to it. My husband was helping Tazuna build his bridge, but Gato's men. Here the tears threatened to pour once more before she willed herself to stop crying as best she could. Nami's been my home all my life. I don't know if my family and I can make it anywhere else, so anything to help us get rid of Gato I'll help. Final fucking ly. Naruto mentally cheered as she went back inside. Naruto had been getting nowhere in the last few days. Gato literally had the country's populace by the proverbial balls, and no one was willing to talk about him. Ushering him a little closer, the woman grabbed his hand, shook it, and then shouted, I don't have anything to spare! Leave! And slammed the door on his face. Son of a bitch! Naruto shouted and noticed the action drew the attention of nearby pedestrians. What the hell are you staring at? The sudden shout made the onlookers walk away from him even faster, even more so when Naruto began to walk down the streets. Anger was evident on his disguised face. In Nami, an angry individual was the last person someone wanted to mess around with. It more or less didn't end well. For a good 5 minutes Naruto wandered around before he found himself in a more or less secluded area of Nami. Ducking into one of the alleyways, Naruto took out the piece of paper he was given. Gotta give her props, she's a damn good actress. Shinobi-san, before Gato came to Nami, my husband was a fisherman by trade. When he took over he was out of job and helped Tazuna as best he could. He and a few fishermen continued to secretly gather food from the ocean as best they could to support the workers. However, one day he simply disappeared, and in these times it's never a good sign. Here Naruto noticed a few stains on the paper. The woman had been crying while she was writing this. Judging from what the letter implied, he'd bet his last Rio that Gato or one of his cronies had a hand in the husband's demise. Ever since he arrived, Gato's been limiting the amount of people allowed to fish in the ocean to support Nami. In the center of Nami there's a cave that goes deep underground to a large lake that connects several ocean currents, and various fish and sea life. Every few times a year a massive amount of various species of fish gathers here for a month or so before returning to the ocean. Unfortunately, Gato has since then blown up the entrance to the cave and has it guarded by his men to prevent us from digging it out. Oh, for the love of Kami, please tell me this has a point. Naruto didn't want to sound ungrateful, but he did have a job to do. He knew if people were to help him and open up he'd have to earn their trust. My husband spoke of another entrance, one long since abandoned. The founders of Nami blocked it off centuries ago. I never found out why or where the entrance was. Few did apparently. But if anyone would know, it would be the one calling herself Asagao. I don't know if that's her name, but she's very well informed and possibly your best hope at finding where the entrance is. Good luck. Here the letter ended and Naruto silently cursed. Great. Now I have to find someone who only shows up when they want to. Even with his detection skill, Asagao somehow managed to pop up without him knowing at times. One time he sensed her coming around a corner, and the next he found her popping up behind him. This meant that she was either a shinobi or someone with shinobi training and extremely skilled at stealth and suppressing her presence. Naruto also cursed himself for not using his observe on her whenever he did. Somehow the thought always seemed to slip his mind for some reason. "Hey, handsome!" A voice behind him called out, and Naruto had to force himself from not yelling out. "Speak of the devil and she will appear," Naruto thought, but it also confirmed his suspicions. While Naruto's detection skill wasn't the greatest, though still better than his detect bloodlust / killing intent skill, he should have been able to detect the woman's presence either way. This meant only one: the woman before him was obviously no ordinary civilian. But is she an ally or the opposite? Anko had been strict when it came to trusting unknowns. With third parties, one never knew if they were actually on your side or merely looking for an opportunity to stab you in the back. "You alright?" Asagao asked him. "Huh? Oh, I'm fine," Naruto told her, and became surprised when she put her hand to his head. No fever, that's good." Asagao nodded in relief. "So what can I do for you? What makes you think I was looking for you?" he asked calmly, but his heart was beating a mile a minute. "Well, this is the same spot we met the first time. Remember?" she indicated, making Naruto blink as he looked around. "Oh," the woman spoke truthfully as Naruto recognized certain qualities from the last time he was here. Naruto honestly wondered how he managed to come back here in the first place. "You space out a lot, don't you?" She question made Naruto sputter and caused her to chuckle. "It's fine. We all got our weird quirks, handsome." "Right, quirks." He spoke before he got to business. "I was told you could help me with something. It's 2,000 Ryo every half hour," she said, and Naruto imitated his teammate by becoming bright scarlet at what she was implying. "For an additional 1,000, can you do my A-N-O? No, 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 no! Not I wanted to ask!" He yelled and tried to get the image out of his mind. "Ha ha ha ha!" Asagao laughed at his flustered look. "Oh, that was too easy. Relax, handsome, I know you're not the type for that sort of thing," she smirked. "Then why I needed a good laugh. It hasn't been that great these last few days and I needed a picker-upper." She laughed at his comical and disbelieving look. "But seriously, what can I do for you? You looking for information?" Focusing despite the befuddlement that still lingered in his thoughts, Naruto asked her, "What can you tell about this cave the fisherman used?" The woman cocked an eyebrow, clearly not expecting such a request. "That's a first. Not that I don't know what you're talking about, but why do you want to know about it?" "Personal reasons," he said. "Sorry, handsome, but that's not gonna cut it for me." She frowned and her eyebrows creased. "No talk, I walk." "Shit," the disguised blonde cursed and tried to come up with another tactic. But as the woman looked ready to make herself scarce, he blurted out, "I want to help the people of Nami. So much for keeping a low profile. Anko's gonna kill me." He felt like kicking himself. "See, now was that so hard?" She quipped. "Okay, I'll tell you, but I want something in return. Nothing too bad or difficult," she quickly added. She said nothing too bad or difficult. This meant it was still bad and may not be as easy to accomplish. "What is it?" Here she smiled, but unlike before, Naruto briefly had the impression he was gazing into eyes of a predator before the look in her eye vanished just as quickly. While brief, Naruto's assumption of her being an ordinary woman disappeared. Whether she was a ninja or just an extraordinary civilian was yet to be determined. But it was evident she was powerful or influential, or both. Naruto simply couldn't just take her in for questioning. For one, it would draw too much attention to himself, and if she was in fact a ninja, there was also no guarantee he could beat her. For thinking things out. Yeah, my WIS goes up." Naruto resisted the urge to roll his eyes. At some point he'd find a way to prevent that from popping up during crucial events. "Simple, I want you to make sure Nami's food shortage comes to an end." She smiled. Huh! Of all the requests she'd asked, Naruto did not see that one coming. Okay, no problem. But why do you care about Nami?" "I don't care much for Nami, really. But I have a soft spot for kids and I can't stand seeing starving children." "Call it a weakness," she answered him cryptically. "Plus, a well-fed populace makes better soldiers if you're trying to get them to reveal information on Gato." She smiled knowingly at Naruto's stunned look. "Yeah, you're not that subtle, and unlike you, I know how to make the people of Nami talk, handsome. How long have you known?" Naruto knew there was no point in hiding who he was any longer. The moment I saw you, I knew you were more than what you posed to be, Shinobi-san. Unlike your ordinary dim-witted call girl, I'd dealt with enough of your kind to recognize you from a mile away, Asagao explained. But most importantly, while you might be able to fool those where you're from, your acting skills sucks on someone who's played the game longer than you have. But I digress. My offer still stands. You help feed the masses and I tell you which base Gato's hiding in. And how the hell do you know where he is? It's obvious you're more than who you appear to be. Why don't you do something about Gato? Naruto wondered. You're making the assumption I can. I can do many things, but fighting an army of ruthless thugs by myself isn't one of them. You need me to gather information or seduce someone, then I'm your woman. Fighting one or two of Gato's thugs I may be able to handle. Ask me to fight his army, and the ninja he hired, and you might as well ask a rock not to sink to the bottom of the ocean. I came here to live a peaceful life, but that plan was shot to hell when Gato set his eyes on Nami. That bastard is greedy too, and once he's sucked this place dry he'll move on and set his sights somewhere else. I've been around his types before, and it's not that hard to figure out. Even if Nami is freed, there are too many bad memories here for me. So you need to get rid of him for me and make the people grow a backbone. Do that and I'll tell you where he's hiding, deal? Though apprehensive to trust this woman, Naruto knew he had no choice. They couldn't allow the mission to drag on for long. Zabuza had most likely recovered more than half of his strength. Though he didn't want to face the man, he'd rather do it when he was weakened. It would be a tough fight for sure, but at least his chance at survival was greater than if he was at full health. Fine. Naruto shook her hand but brought her in close. But if you stab me in the back you'll regret it, was the harsh promise. If there was anything Naruto hated more, it was traitors or backstabbers. He was a forgiving person but was reluctant and slow to forgive when it came to those types of individuals. Asagao merely shook her head and looked shaken, but otherwise she gave the information he needed. With the information in hand, Naruto promptly left the alley he was in to get Ino. Not once noticing the once shaken-up woman now sporting a grin before she left the alley herself, her plans slowly coming into fruition. Sometime later, "Yo, Anko-sensei!" Naruto shouted out as he entered the clearing with his teammate, and Ino suppressed a groan. "We're trying to keep a low profile, you idiot!" The more things changed, the more they stayed the same, it would seem. Part of her wondered when Naruto would know when to use his inside voice. Then again, the same could be said about Anko at times. Quick as a flash, Anko flickered before them with a pleading look in her eyes. "For the love of Kami-sama, please tell me you found something good?" Maybe. Naruto thought it the perfect chance for payback. The idea was just as quickly destroyed as Anko's face had an even more pleading look. "Sensei, you alright? I'm so worried." She bawled into his shirt, and Naruto seriously had no idea what to do at the moment. "Please tell me you got something. Please!" She wailed some more. Tears were now freely flowing from her eyes. All right, we found out something that can potentially help with the food shortage." Naruto caved into her pleading. The boy couldn't stand crying women and comforted his crying teacher. More like ex-crying teacher when he saw her grinning face. "And that's another way to get a man to spill his guts. If seduction doesn't work, pour on them tears. Men are suckers for that crap and it works 7 times out 10. The woman told the nodding Ino. The two kunoichi ignoring the gapping male near them. "Ah shit! No fair!" an angry Naruto shouted. The realization that he had just been had finally settling in. Naruto considered himself a good liar. He had pulled the same crap with his Oroic no Jutsu, but didn't expect himself to have fallen to Anko's charade so quickly. Anko merely scoffed. "What did I say about fair?" Naruto was about to retort but was torn between wanting to curse and admitting that she had a point. In the end, all he did was huff and smack away Anko's hand as she ruffled his head. "Ha! Can't believe you fell for that. Oldest trick in the book." Naruto frowned as he heard Kiba laugh at his misfortune. "Yeah, well, I can't believe you haven't gotten this down yet. Took me 6 days to reach the top." It was true, but even then the tree climbing exercise had not been mastered. Reaching the top was only part of it. 6 days? Dude, it's only been 5 days and I'm already over 3/4 up. What does that tell ya? That these trees are small compared to Konoha's. Naruto's response immediately got Kiba to shut up. Even then he could hear light grumbling coming from the Pharaoh boy. Everyone in the clearing had to admit that Konoha's mighty trees dwarfed Nami's. The size comparison between the two was like that of a tree to a flower. No contest. So you plan on getting in and using the fish to get her to talk? While Naruto's and Kiba's hunting exploits were good and all, Nami didn't have that many land fauna compared to the other countries. Hunting them down was easy, but hunting too much wouldn't be good for Nami's ecosystem. Nami was small but still had a very large populace, and relied mostly on the bounties the ocean brought them to feed themselves. The fauna in the woods wasn't that large apparently, and if they hunted too much of the creatures they'd be almost defenseless against the predators that hunted the prey. Wolves and bears stayed away from humans mostly, but when food became scarce they wouldn't think twice about attacking a human. With Nami having only civilian militia, and an ill-prepared or practically non-existent one at the moment, they'd stand little chance. Our plans to find the place and seal as much of the little suckers as possible. Asagao said that if we help feed Nami, she'll in turn tell us where Gato is. Anko looked impassive as she heard the woman's name, and when asked to elaborate what they knew about her it served to add more questions. Whoever she was, Anko didn't doubt she was much more than she appeared if her team's information was anything to go by. During the war some of the worst enemies were civilians with some training in the shinobi arts. Unlike civilians, a shinobi could be recognized in many ways, such as by looking at their face or hands. Even in a henge one could sometimes be recognized simply by the way they moved. People whom had the bare minimum training as a ninja, especially natural-born actors, could appear and act like as regular civilians. Around such individuals some shinobi let their guard down, only for them to be struck down or wounded before it was too late to act. The fact that Naruto forgot to use his observe on her each time they met only added more fuel to the fire. Once was shame on him, twice as well, any more times and then you realize something was amiss. That, or the ninja was just terrible at critical thinking. Something Anko had painstakingly improved in the boy. This Asagao character gave Anko the same impression, and she was weary. Was the woman a civilian trained in the shinobi way? Was she someone under Gato's employ? Or was she part of a third party? There were too many questions and no answers to any of them for Anko's liking. So far she hadn't shown any negative or hostile intentions, but even then that meant nothing. History showed time and time again how others were forced to prove their worth to gain another's trust. Even when they succeeded to prove themselves, some still ended up stabbed in the back both literally and figuratively. Luckily, through bed rest and healing sessions from both Hinata and Ino, the man would be well enough to watch over his team alone by tomorrow. Technically speaking, he could do it now, but Anko was willing to grin and bear it for one last day if it meant him healing more quickly. Part of her wished they could have had the man benefit from Naruto's ability, but the less anyone knew about the ability, the better. So where is this place? She asked. Near the westmost part of Nami, near the ocean, I think, Naruto informed her. Asagao says it used to be the original entrance until pirates began to use it as a base. Long story short, the pirates tried to take over Nami, but the entrance and exit was caved in by the natives and they were trapped inside. Cut off? Then how the hell do you expect to get in and out? Yeah, that's the problem. The entrance on land is too caved in to use and would draw too much attention if it were suddenly fixed. Apparently there's a series of tunnels and waterways beneath the entrance. But it's more or less a one-way trip with the current. So getting in isn't the problem, it's getting out. Anko wasn't liking this, but they didn't really have a choice in the matter. Bingo. Though Naruto thinks it might not be so bad. Ino added her 2 cents. Huh. I've got a hunch that this cave is gonna end up being the natural dungeon of Nami. If it's the case, then making our way out probably won't be a problem. The only problem though is the time it will take us to complete our task, Naruto explained. Asagao said the other reason why the loss of the original entrance wasn't that big a deal was because it took them a day and a half to get to the underground lake cave. Takes them even longer to get out when they had to haul the spoils. That's why the other entrance was made. Cuts the time to get there by half a day. That deep, huh? Yeah, lucky us. Even with my ability to manipulate the time in dungeons, it's probably gonna take us a while. Apparently there are a shit ton of tunnels down there. I've got shadow clones, but it'll take us some time to find the place. It's your call, but this is a step getting the mission over more quickly. Even as he said this, Naruto was hoping she'd let them go. The boy had been bored these last few days. Hunting was good and all, but Naruto was itching for some dungeon crawling. Anko couldn't argue with that. As time went on, the stronger Zabuza would become and possible reinforcements would arrive. They got lucky the last time they dealt with him. Now the man would be better prepared and know what to expect from them. On the plus side, the dungeon may get them to level up a bit, and give her team a slightly better advantage. Alright, once guard duties are over, you two and Hinata are to rest up before leaving tonight to find this place. Midori will help. In her large form, ocean currents aren't that much of a deal for her. She'll get you there, but afterwards you guys are on your own. Hato's gonna stay behind. I'm gonna be looking after the old man, and with you gone I'm gonna need Hato and Midori to watch over the old man's daughter and grandkid. Though it was Kakashi's duty to do so, the man was also in charge of watching over his team. She didn't doubt he knew shadow clones, but as he was still on the mend, she didn't want to risk a relapse in his recovery. Wait, how's Midori gonna help us get there? Ino immediately regretted asking the question the moment she saw her teacher's shit-eating grin. Oh fuck! The blonde would later regret asking those words. Sometime later. We are never ever doing that again! A fuming and slime-covered Ino shouted and huffed for air. The blonde girl spat out some of the slippery substance that entered her mouth. A look of pure disgust on her face as she attempted to rid herself of the filth. Yeah, I like to consider myself open-minded, but that was pure bullshit. Right now all I want to do is take a bath and drink shots till I forget this ever happened. The blonde ignored the fact that he never drank before in his life. Naruto was seriously gonna get back at the woman for this. Promised to not prank her, be damned. There was a fine line, and Anko had crossed it too many damn times. Being swallowed whole by a snake and then barfed out was an experience all three could have done without. You alright, Hinata? Hinata? Hello? Ino asked. Please don't say anything, Ino-san, the Hyuga said, and Ino slowly backed away. I think she's pissed. Is she pissed? Naruto asked his fellow blonde. I'm guessing. So that's what an angry Hinata looks like. Ino whispered and shuddered lightly as the usually meek and amicable girl sent her an impassive but angry look. Oh yeah, she's definitely pissed. Even though her face didn't look angry, Ino could tell that Hyuga was not pleased at the moment. Before they entered the dungeon, both Ninja and Kunoichi washed themselves off to rid themselves of the smell and sticky substance that covered their bodies. Though none of them spoke, all three mentally agreed that what transpired was never going to be told anyone. Ever. Once they were ready and well prepared, checking their inventory and making sure everything was in tip-top shape, the three ninja made their way towards the dungeon entrance. Unraveling Lake Dungeon, first floor, party must have a level 20 member. Note: possessing the swimming skill and underwater combat skill is recommended. Nighttime dungeon effect in play. Recommended level 20-30. Ah crap, I knew it. Naruto had his suspicions, but the text box pretty much proved it for him. The underwater part meant they were most likely gonna need to swim and fight submerged. Anko had only taught them the basics as she was no expert, and it rarely occurred. Ninja more or less fought on land or on top of water, not in it. She had informed them that Kiri and Aim Ninja were known for water-based combat such as this and Suiton techniques. Some of them were used to drown or submerge their opponents to hamper their techniques and prowess. Anko explained that while Tobarama Senju of Konoha had no rival in Suiton ninjutsu, Hattori Hanzo of Aim came pretty damn close, and he was unrivaled in underwater combat, with the Senju being long dead. Teaching the ninja of his village to have that same advantage was a no-brainer if faced against others. Though even with them being slightly prepared and having the skills, it was not going to be easy. What's up with the nighttime thing? A curious Ino asked. Basically, the monsters are gonna be stronger, and it's probably gonna darker, too. In video games, only certain monsters are out at night. They also offer a better challenge since you can't exactly see as well either. But as a result, they're also stronger too by a few extra levels. Shouldn't be too bad though. Naruto explained. Except for Naruto, none of them had ever done missions or dungeon training at night before unless one counted the zombie world dungeon. Technically it was dark and nighttime in the dungeon, but it was more aesthetic than anything. So it's kinda like how certain predators like panthers or owls only do their hunting at night, Ino assessed. Much of the dungeon's mechanics she noticed revolved or were somewhat based on real-life occurrences and happenstances. This nighttime effect reminded Ino of such a thing. Good thing we have Hinata then. Her Byakugan will make seeing in the dark easier, right? Well, just by a bit. The stuttering began. The Byakugan offers better visibility in darkened areas, but in caves I'm afraid my range is limited. I can see through certain things, but if it's too damn thick you can't. Ino assumed and groaned when Hinata nodded. Meh, Anko-sensei keeps telling us not to put all our eggs in one basket anyway. It didn't mean she liked it, but Ino wasn't going to whine either. It could be worse and it would give them better experience. Ano, Naruto-kun, what are we expecting in there? Hinata asked her teammate. Ino also appeared just as curious as her kunoichi in arms. No idea. But if have to guess, this is a cave and near the ocean, it's probably gonna be some water monsters or something water-related. Good thing you guys know some lightning techniques. Neither kunoichi had to ask. It was common sense, and it didn't take a genius that water creatures were weak to electricity. Though it also meant that Naruto's Katan ninjutsu and Hinata's Suiton ninjutsu wouldn't be as effective. Though it was more so the former of the two. Alright, let's get this show on the road, Naruto declared before their vision was blinded by a flash of bright light. As the brilliance that momentarily stole their vision disappeared, Team 8 was immediately greeted with a sight few could ever claim to have seen. The cave was lit up with a green and ocean blue glow. The cave had a series of tunnels and ponds of bright or darkened water. On the walls was a multitude of glowing coral and bioluminescent lichen or moss, most likely the source of the light in the cave. All in all, it was a scene that took their breath away, and none of them doubted they'd ever see anything quite like it again. Whoa! Was all an awed Ino could say. Yeah, whoa! Naruto had to agree while Hinata remained speechless. Not that this isn't great and all, but time's a-wasting. Though Ino and Hinata would have liked to have stayed longer, both knew that Naruto was right. While his ability to slow down time was great, Ino knew it would take them quite some time to get to their destination. None of them knew which tunnel lead to their goal, and who knows what they would encounter down here. A little over 2 hours later. I said it before and I'll say it again, haven't we had enough of zombies? Ino asked as she lashed out with a kick and followed up with a heel stomp on the bone-white cranium. For the last time, they're not zombies. They're skeletons! Naruto shouted out the difference as he smashed in the visibly rib cage of his opponent. Naruto had been the first to notice the lack of bodies in the dungeon. If Asagio spoke truthfully, then the cave should have been littered with the bones and corpses of the dead pirates. The sudden appearance of their foes explained what had happened to them. Naruto had half expected to encounter ghosts, or some kind of water monsters/creatures that ended up being the reason why no bones were seen. A creature he could deal with, and he'd take a walking and hostile skeleton over a ghost any day. Not that big a difference if you asked me, the blonde muttered before she blocked a strike and countered with a vicious kick to the spine. Both types of foes were undead and unpleasant to look at. Though in the skeleton pirate's case they smelled slightly better, seeing as how they didn't have decomposing flesh that reeked horrendously. Buccaneer Skeleton Pirate, LV. 26 HP, 2200 CP, 900 STR, 58 VIT, 88 DX, 79 INT, 36 WIS, 45 LUK 0, you're dead, your luck sucks. Defense, 30 Elemental Affinity, none perks, Undead Pirate, ignore pain, 30% less damage taken by sharp objects, loot drop increased by 30% increase efficiency and effectiveness towards dirty tactics and swordsmanship. Cannibal. 4% HP regen per 5 seconds outside of combat when eating meat, 3% HP regen per 5 seconds during combat when eating own kind. Allbone, plus 30% increased damage from taijutsu and blunt objects, immune to genjutsu, plus 30% resistance towards suiton and katan, minus 30 resistance towards doton, plus 50% increase to movement speed in and out of combat, plus 25% increase towards evasion and dodging skill description, contrast to their flesh and disease-ridden cousins, the zombies. Skeletons are steadier, deadlier, much quicker, and above all smarter. This jumble of bones may look fragile, but their lightweight allow them to move quickly and perform feats zombies otherwise could not. Being possessed by dead and vengeful spirits, these undead foes envy the living and will attack anyone that crosses their sight. As they are possessed by the souls of former pirates, their skill in swordsmanship should not be taken lightly. EXP earned, 276 EXP drops, 7001056 Rio, Rusty Cutlass? Besides, with the perks we have, it's not gonna be that hard to deal with them. Ino grumbled though. Until she hit level 25, she would be stuck with only 3 titles compared to Naruto's 4. The fact that you couldn't change titles during combat or in dungeons sucked too. It would have made her techniques more effective. At least she leveled up because of the amount they killed, so she was one step closer to it. Take cover! Naruto suddenly shouted and promptly shoved Ino out of the way. Ino's mind was working a mile a minute as she tried to figure out what was happening before the spot where she once stood and unexpectedly exploded. The explosion shook the walls and sent dirt and debris flying in every which way, as well as causing a dust cloud to form. What the hell? A shaken up Ino wondered what exactly had just happened. Cannons! She heard Hinata speak behind her. Cannons? A decent crack in the wall allowed Ino the chance to see on the opposing wall. Though the caverns were dark, some of the skeleton pirates held torches and cutlasses. Ino could make out the forms of shiny dark metal cylinders. True to Hinata's word, the enemy were using cannons of all things. Alright, this just got a little trickier. Ino had to stop herself when Naruto stated the obvious. They were in a series of narrow caves with only one way in or out at the moment. This meant they couldn't exactly have the liberty to move as much as they wanted to without being blown to bits. Sure, she'd admit that Naruto was strong and fast, but not enough to avoid sudden cannon fire. The only reason why he managed before was because he noticed them before they were fired. Cannon fire in general weren't all that much of a threat to shinobi quick enough to evade and know where blast was going to strike. It was one of the reasons why other forms of war machines were developed during the Shinobi World Wars. They were quicker, could fire more widespread, and were more lethal in general compared to the one-shot cannons had. Even then, she read that many still use cannons, as they were a hell of a lot cheaper, and got creative on how to use them. Ah, crap. Seals, she realized and braced herself as another explosion occurred. Dust and rocks from above fell on top of her, and Ino began to worry if the ceiling was going to cave in on them. Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. Literally. No doubt about it. Naruto wasn't lost on the irony that one of his own skills was being used against him. A quick use of observe made him curse even more when the cannons the pirates held showed they did in fact have seals on them. He didn't doubt it made them more powerful and allowed them to shoot without having to reload in the conventional sense. It's times like this I wish I could summon like Anko-sensei. The thought of having a summon of his own had often entered Naruto's mind as he spent more time with Midori and Anko. Anko herself didn't have the summoning contract to the serpents, so Naruto wouldn't be able to sign on with them anytime soon. The boy doubted that her former mentor was all that willing to let him sign it either. From what he remembered, the monkeys, slugs, toads, and snakes were 4 of the most famed summons in the elemental countries. Not the most powerful, but they were in the top 10 strongest summons known to mankind. Add that they had gained fame and notoriety due to their summoners, past and present alike. Being exceptionally powerful ninja was a bonus. Problem was that 3 were inaccessible at the moment, and 1 was allied with a clan. Boom! Flinching at the sound and impact that rang in their ears, Naruto didn't know much about the other 2, but having a snake summon would be great right now. The speed and strength would allow it to take care of the cannon fire. But since they didn't have that option, they'd have to improvise. Hey Ino, you think you can take one over? Naruto asked. No can do. Contrary to popular belief, my clan's techniques don't send our soul into another's body. Our technique sends our minds and conscience to fight our victim's brain to suppress and take over their body. If it was an ordinary zombie, it would be no problem since they still have a mind, Ino said. But since these guys are all bone and are basically just souls keeping bones together, it's a no-go, right? Crap. He cursed their luck as Ino nodded. Ano. Naruto-kun, why don't you henge into a kunai and then have one of us toss you behind them? Was the Hyuga's input. Why the hell didn't I think of that? It was a simple but effective solution. Creating a shadow clone of himself, Naruto then used the henge to transform himself into a Fuma Shuriken. Prepping himself, the clone then rushed to the entrance, and then tossed the transformed Naruto with all its might before its existence came to an end courtesy of cannon fire. The Fuma Shuriken then landed behind the unsuspecting undead pirates before Naruto returned to normal. The closed skeletons were left defenseless as Naruto swung and crushed them with his kanabo with the left hand, while he blocked a sword strike with his uchigatana. The blonde then made short work of the attacking skeletal being with a series of quick and heavy chakra-enhanced blows. Naruto then proceeded to pepper the skeletons near the second cannon with flying metal and paper before a heavy explosion rocked the cave. "Now!" he shouted now that the entrance was no longer at risk at being shot at. The blonde couldn't have picked a better time to get back up as a new wave of pirate skeletons made themselves known. He fought as best he could, but the amount forced him to create several clones, some of them being overwhelmed by the skeletons. Kage Bunshin were great and all, but Naruto hated that they were so easy to get rid of with a well-placed hit. Better them than me though, he thought as his teammates finally joined him. As both of them were very taijutsu-oriented, Hinata more so, their techniques were much more effective against the skeletal beings. "I can see an aura surrounding them." Hinata spoke and ducked under a sword swing. Ino jumped over her teammate, grabbed the skeleton's arms and proceeded to land a flurry of kicks on its exposed defenseless body. "The bones are being held together by some form of chakra-like apparition." "You mean like a ghost?" Ino asked. "Ghost." Naruto instantaneously spun around, a look of fear on his face, and inadvertently ending 4 skeletons in one go as his kanabo smashed their skulls into dust. "Where?" Ino and the few skeletons near her sweat dropped at his overdramatic reaction. "He's willing to fight tooth and nail against an A-rank nuke, but ask him to fight a ghost, and he becomes the world's greatest wimp." Sometimes Naruto's odd quirks made her wonder why he wasn't in the loony bin. Thud. "Eh?" Ino cocked an eyebrow before she spotted a series of bones fall limply to the ground. "What the dash?" Ino's question was already answered before she had time to ask it. The Yamanaka watched as Hinata landed a few well-placed blows behind skeleton. From her point of view it appeared as though Hinata was missing the mark completely and striking nothing but air. Then the bones such as the arms, legs, hands and head would begin to fall one by one before they moved no longer. It took Ino only a second to realize the Hyuga was attacking the spirits controlling the skeleton's head one. Anko had mentioned during their lessons that some Suna shinobi used puppets to fight for them. Attacking the puppets themselves were a waste of time and energy. To end the fight you needed to bring down the one controlling the puppets. In this scenario the puppet was the skeleton and the spirit was the master pulling the strings. For thinking things through carefully, your WIS and INT have increased by 1. "There's a first," Ino remarked as another skeleton went down courtesy of Hinata's Juken strikes. Not one to be outdone by the group Wallflower, despite her improvement, Ino set out to end just as many skeletons with her furious kicks. Her weapon/armor was pretty much useless for offense at the moment. Ino, however, felt a cut on her side, nothing too bad, but it distracted her enough for another skeleton to sneak up behind her and land another blow. "Arg!" Ino growled as frustration clouded her mind and she found herself surrounded by 3 skeletons like a caged animal. "Raiton, Jibashi, lighting release, electromagnetic murder," she declared and watched as lightning danced around her and struck her enemies. While the move didn't do that much damage to them, barely 200, it did momentarily halt them in their tracks. This gave Ino an ample amount of time to duck beneath one of their legs before she lashed out with a double donkey kick. Ino put in all her strength and body weight into the attack that it caused the skeleton to barrel into its comrades before they tripped over themselves. "Saigasho, crushing Fong impact!" Naruto declared and brought down his kanabo to end the fallen skeletons. Coupled with his increased strength, technique and weapon, the skeleton were felled in a good 2 solid blows. "Hey, those 3 were mine!" Ino shouted. "Sorry, excuse me for helping out." Sheesh. Naruto didn't know why she was acting the way she was, but he was staying out of it. "All right, Let's grab the loot and take a breather. No sense in going any further when it was clear they were in a dead end. This meant they'd have to retrace their steps. All three had been fighting virtually non-stop for the past 2 hours or so. Ino didn't know if it was Naruto's ability or not, but if this had been the amount of pirates that planned to take over Nami, the girl didn't doubt for a second the fight would have been bloody and quick. Nami no Kuni's ancestors had been smart to close them off and sealed them in the caves. As they collected the loot, most of it being money, a skeleton bone, or a rusty cutlass, Ino spotted Naruto sealing one of the cannons into a scroll. No doubt he had plans for it, but she could help but wonder what. As she continued gathering everything, Ino spotted a chest under the water of a nearby pool. It wasn't too deep, she noted, and the prospect of getting a ton of loot was too good to pass up. Grabbing one end, Ino grunted as she slowly hoisted it up onto dry land. But no sooner had it been placed on the ground did the chest come alive. The trunk revealing a set of razor-sharp teeth and a wet, hungry tongue that reeked of rotten foul flesh. Ino made to let go but found her hands stuck to the handles/arms of the creature, and she could only scream as it snapped at her. Meanwhile, Gato released a content smile as he went over the ledgers, both official and off records. His legitimate business was making him a great sum of money. If he read it correctly, and he was pretty certain he did, he'd have a 13 to 19% increase in revenue from the last quarter if business continued as it was. His other business, while not making as much, was making him a great deal of profit. The only difference between them was the lack of tax being taken off and reducing the amount he should be earning. Well, that and the illegality of human and drug trafficking of it all. It was one of the reasons why he got into this business. Growing up on the streets, Gato had nothing to his name except his wit and intelligence. Many, ninja and civilian alike, didn't even bother to give him a sideways glance or even attempt to help him. It had been by pure chance that someone had seen worth in him, took him in, taught him the trade and how to put his smarts to profitable use. From him, Gato had managed to go from a street urchin to a decent businessman, and later on a rich, successful businessman. Though it hadn't been without consequences. Gato had made many enemies over the years, powerful ones. The man had seen firsthand how if he stepped on the wrong toes it could be the end of him and all that he had worked hard to build. That was the last thing he needed. And from that point Gato could only trust those who were in his complete control. Zabuza and his band of merry men weren't in his control. They were a liability in his mind, and he needed to get rid of them quickly. The only problem was who to find to get rid of them. Zabuza was weak now, but once he recovered he'd be difficult to deal with. Contrary to how easy it looked in the minds of others, finding powerful missing ninja to take on contracts weren't all that easy actually. A and S rank ones especially, and they weren't cheap either. He'd better come through or else Gato-sama. He heard a voice over the intercom. What is it? I'm in the middle of something. The message, while unspoken, was clear as crystal. It had better be important. Why, you know those new recruits you asked for? Gato was confused by messy stuttering. They're dead, sir. One of them killed them all. The man managed to finish. What? Gato roared in anger and made his way towards the door of his office. Whoever was responsible was going to pay for this. The short man would assure to that. But Gato never got the chance to do so as the doors to his office were suddenly and unexpectedly flung open with a large wham. Gato barely had time to drop to the ground as a lifeless body was sent flying over him and smacked against his desk. The corrupt business owner paled as he saw blood pouring out of the various wounds the man had. Or at least, he was certain it was a man. The person could have been a woman for all he knew under all those bruises and swollen body parts. Hey, short stack, you Gato? A voice called out. His fear momentarily replaced with anger, Gato rounded one the individual but realized he only just met the man's waist. The man was a giant from his point of view. Though Gato wasn't exactly the tallest of men either. As he looked upon the man's face, Gato's fear returned greater than before. The grin the giant had before him making him become even more unsettled. I heard you're offering a job that pays pretty well. Here he bent over and looked the man straight in the eye. Let's talk business. Minutes later. Zabuza-sama, are you sure you're I'm good enough, Haku? If I stay in bed any longer, I'm gonna lose it. Besides, I'd rather not give those tree huggers any more time to prepare. Zabuza would have preferred being at 100% health, but he couldn't risk the Konoha ninja finding out where they were. Both Gozu and Meizu were fully healed and would take care of the genin while he and Haku separated them from their jonin. The two had been told to fight smart and not fool around this time. They didn't so much as need to win the fight so much as they needed a couple of hostages to get the old man to hand himself over. Part of him believed it would work. The last time was to catch him off guard and the brat wasn't actually in harm's way. But you're not in fighting shape. Relax, all we're doing is grabbing one of the brats. You said it yourself, you haven't seen Hataki? I'd wager he's still resting too. All we need is one of them, and the snake bitch ain't all that too. Zabuza, finally ready to do what I paid you for? The short man's scowl was met by Zabuza's own. Don't get your panties in a knot, Gato. Give us a couple of days and the old man will be ours, Zabuza assured him. Just make sure you have our money ready when it's done. Ah, yes, about that. Pardon me if I don't take your word to heart given your previous performance. The man's words made Zabuza scowl even further. I don't need any more slip-ups. Which is why I took the liberty of hiring another to make sure the job gets done. This isn't up for debate. You little shit. That wasn't part of the deal. Zabuza wasn't going to allow some other ninja get in on the action. The last thing he needed was splitting the fee in half. The resistance needed all the money they could get sooner than later. Besides, I work better with those I know and trust. Good thing you know me then, Zabu, a voice called out. All four shinobi looked to the door before a figure made himself become known from behind the small man. Zabuza, Meizu, and Gozu, for their parts, remained motionless as they saw the individual. Complete disbelief washed over them like a wave, and before it was replaced with worry. For a moment they three believed their minds were playing tricks on them, part of them praying it was the case. But as a chuckle escaped the person's lips, they had knew it was futile. Still the carrying around that oversized meat cleaver, as Zabuza. Then again you needed to in order to compensate. The man's smirk revealed a set of nasty and pointy-looking teeth. Zabuza-sama, who's that? Haku asked the stunned swordsman. The recovered swordsman couldn't properly make a phrase to answer his ward. Oh, Zabu, you didn't talk about me, I'm hurt. The man really wasn't and directed his attention to Haku. Nice to meet ya, kid. Seeing as we're about to raise a little hell together, it's only natural I introduce myself. Here he released a dark and ominous chuckle that sent shivers down to the souls of everyone present. And why wouldn't it? Before them was, without question, the strongest of the 7 swordsmen, an S-rank missing ninja. The name's Kisame. I'm the monster of the bloody mist. Chapter 23. Swimming with the Fishes. Kaya! Ino shouted her heart out as the chest she was stuck to attempted to bite her face off. Her screams of terror getting the immediate attention of her teammates. Get this fucking thing off me! GRHGHHH! The chest monster snarled as it used its small but strong arms to bring her closer to its razor-filled maw. Ino swore this was going to be the end before the mouth was harshly closed mere inches before her face. Damn mimics! Naruto spoke, never once letting up his kanabo from the creature's head. The boy would have been surprised if it had been defeated so easily. Mimics were easily one of the sturdiest of monsters and decently tough, especially their king variants. Most weapons and taijutsu didn't have that much of an effect on them due to their tolerance for them. Grarag! The creature buckled and shook to free itself. But not once did it let go of Ino. Mimics rarely ever did let go of their prey once they grabbed a hold on them. There were few times they ever did. 2 of them were when their captive was dead or the mimic was itself was dead. Even when unconscious, it would take monstrous strength to get a mimic to relinquish their grip. Observe! Pirate Chest Mimic, LV. 25 HP, 3000 CP, 1100 STR, 86 VIT, 100 DX, 39 INT, 44 WIS, 5 LUK, 41 Defense, 120 Elemental Affinity, none perks, Master of Disguise, undetectable via common sensory or detection techniques, can imitate virtually any object of its size. Plus 50% effectiveness and efficiency towards sneak attacks, plus 25% increase towards critical strikes. Ravenous. capable of recovering health by consuming bodies of beasts, living or undead, plus 30% increase in effectiveness towards grappling, plus 30% increase towards STR, DX and movement speed when HP is below 40% natural reinforcement, plus 500 HP, plus 50 defense, plus 75% tolerance towards taijutsu, bukijutsu and kenjutsu, minus 25% tolerance towards blunt weapons, plus 50% effectiveness towards blocking environment adaptability. Whichever environment the mimic is in, it gains plus 75% towards certain elemental tolerance and minus 75% towards its opposing nature description. Mimics are easily one of the most dangerous of monsters due to its ability to shape-shift into virtually any object of its size. Usually, it takes on the appearance of an object that creatures or people will approach without thought or gain their interest. More often, it commonly takes on the appearance of chests. The mimic can lay dormant for months at a time in a hibernation-like state, even in the oddest of places, and is virtually harmless. Once touched, however, mimics will enter into a ravenous frenzy and seek to feed and consume whoever grabbed it, and those nearby. Its body secretes an invisible but powerful adhesive film that holds fast to creatures who touch it. While stuffed, the mimic will beat them to death with its arms or rip them apart with its fine dagger-like teeth. Mimics will rarely ever let go of their prey. Afterwards, the mimic has fed, it will resume its hibernation for a month or so. During this time, it will be harmless and can be carried around without fear of being harmed or killed. EXP earned? EXP drops? Fuck, I thought so. Naruto knew this was going to be tricky as hell. Hang on, Ino. The Yamanaka wanted to shout at him for the poor attempt at humor, but her focus was on the abomination trying to eat her. The kunoichi doubted she'd look at chests the same way again. After creating 8 clones, one of which was used to help keep its mouth shut, the Narutos then proceeded to lift up their glowing chakra-wrapped weapons. The action gave the sentient chest pause before it realized what was about to occur. Happo Renjiki, 8 directions furious strikes! They shouted and proceeded to land blow after blow on the chest. The first blow did nothing to the mimic, the second neither, the third stung lightly, the fourth even more, the fifth one caused discomfort, the sixth caused greater discomfort, on the seventh it felt pain, and on the eighth it could stand the blows no more. The mimic was a resilient creature, but even then there was only so much damage it could endure before its survival instincts kicked in. Though they weren't the smartest of creatures, mostly driven by instincts, they were smarter than most wild animals. Though rarely did they release their meals, they would not hesitate to do so if it meant living to fight another day. As it released its hold on Ino, who made a mad dash away from it, the mimic jumped and suddenly spun, grabbing a hold of 2 of its attackers. Upon landing back down, making the clone that held its mouth shut go poof, and 2 clones were caught, one by the leg and the other by the arm, the 2 subsequently forced to the ground. The fun didn't end there, as the hungry and drooling creature put their legs in its maw and bite down hard. Normally such an act would have dismembered others. Too bad for the mimic, the only thing it tasted was smoke, as the action merely caused the clones to disappear. 4! The remaining clones and originals shouted before the mimic was greeted with a barrage of blows. This time, however, it was prepared and crossed its arms to lessen the harm that was to come. Ugh! Naruto grunted as he felt his arm shake slightly from the recoil. The blonde knew the mimic was going to be tough defense-wise, but didn't think it would be this tough. With strength one would not expect from such a creature, Naruto was forced back several feet by an unexpected shove. The blonde grunted as he smacked into a boulder that stopped him in his tracks. Too bad for the mimic. And while Naruto liked a challenge, a pissed off or irritated Naruto wasn't someone you wanted to mess with. Geki Rekko, raging light fangs! What the? The blonde blinked as the mimic was being pelted by a hailstorm of electric-powered water needles. Each one that landed on the mimic caused discomfort, slowly crescendoing into pain as the combination technique worked against its weakness. The 2 kunoichi, however, were forced to let up as they felt their reserves being drained by the technique. Strong as it was, the attack was relatively new and taxing for both Ino and Hinata. All 3 didn't know how long it would be before they got out, and they needed to conserve as much chakra as possible. Matters only seemed to get worse as the mimic started pounding the ground as though it was enraged and going berserk. Its speed, though relatively slow, had quickened and was making its way towards the 2 kunoichi. The ground and stone beneath buckled slightly under the pressure as it hopped along. Whistle, the sharp two-toned sound didn't grab the mimic's attention as he had hoped, but the use of shadow clone did. The clone struck the mimic a few times before the creature ended its existence. But the distraction worked out just as he had hoped. Fire in the hole! A thunderous boom echoed and rocked the cave before rocks, dust, and water was thrown up into the air. The mimic was sent flying before it impacted hard into a wall. The creature rose up once more only to get a face full of iron that caved it in further, and sending it back into the wall of rock. Naruto was very much pleased he had sealed one of the cannons at the moment. While it was unconventional, bulky and difficult to use in actual combat, the thing packed a large amount of wallop in it that none of their weapons or techniques could at the moment. Following up with another shot, Naruto was pleased to see the mimic finally go down for good as it disintegrated into lights. Unlike regular cannons that used gunpowder, these modified ones used a person's own chakra and had a seal that reloaded them every 5 seconds. The 5 seconds was not that great, but it got the job done with a creature this slow. Okay, take 2. Grab the loot, rest up, and let's leave any chests alone until I give the okay. Naruto looked at Ino, who merely flipped him off before checking on the downed mimic's loot. Anko's attitude was really rubbing off on the girl. Holy shit. Battle ready, Naruto appeared beside Ino and Hinata but spotted no enemy. What's wrong? Wrong? Nothing. Ino chuckled as she pointed at the loot the mimic had dropped, a scroll, a neat stack of Rio bills, at least 15,000 worth, and more than what a common enemy dropped, and a neat ingot of dark silver metal. But it wasn't just any metal. It was chakra metal. That in itself was worth a pretty Rio. Any metal that was in its purest form was worth a ton of money. Naruto didn't know how much chakra metal was in its purest state, but guessed it was enough if Ino's Rio-filled eyes were anything to go by. Dibs! Ino shouted and greedily grabbed the block of refined metal, only to nearly drop it as the weight almost overwhelmed her. Though physically stronger than she used to be, Ino still had a while to go. Chakra metal was very dense and therefore heavy to carry despite its small size. Most ninja that used them were physically strong and made wielding them appear easy. You can't just call dibs, Naruto declared. Besides, what about Hinata and me? First off, it's Hinata and I. Secondly, you already got your super rare chakra metal that will set you up for life. Naruto had to concede to that. And finally, this is just like shopping. If you call it, you grab it, you get it. Hardly seems fair, Naruto thought. Anko's words about fairness suddenly left the blonde's lips, making him sigh before he divided up the loot, 5,000 Rio each. What are you gonna do with chakra metal anyway? You have a weapon. None of your business. You have your secrets. Hinata and I are entitled to our own, was all she was going to say. Whatever. He'd be lying if he said he wasn't curious, but Ino was a lockbox when it came to secrets. They went in, but rarely, if ever, did they come out. Mina, is it okay if I take the scroll? Hinata stammered lightly. It's a Suikan one anyway, so I'm the only one who could use it. Yeah, go ahead. Naruto didn't bother fighting with her. At least Hinata had the decency to ask first rather than being greedy like Ino. What's it called anyway? I'd rather not say. The girl blushed and did her best to hide it. Ah, not you too! Naruto whined while Ino looked smug. Between Ino and Anko, Hinata was the nicer and more open one of the bunch. Pretty soon the girl would become corrupted by their influence, and Naruto would really be outmatched. This was not looking good for him or Hato. 9 hours later, outside the dungeon. Morning, brats, Hataki. Anko greeted the group. The only acknowledgement she received were moans from the genin and silence from the jounin. Wine was Hato's reply. The small Niken looked depressed for not being able to participate in the dungeon like his partner and pack. While watching over the bridge builder and his family were in the Kameno hybrid's blood, the Niken was used to action too, and he was getting antsy for some. Stop your whining, Puchigaki. I get enough from these winos. The woman ignored the tired glares she got from Team 7. Speaking of which, where's your team, Anko? Kakashi asked, gaining the interest of Sasuke and Kiba. Out scouting. If all goes well, we may be out of here in a few days or so if the intel turns out well. Anko prayed that their luck held out. as it was her team had spent 36 hours in the dungeon already with the time difference. The woman silently called up the status of the group, and despite their CP levels being down, along with their HP, they were doing all right. "So what's the plan for today?" she asked, mostly to help get her mind off her team. "Well, since you've been doing a good job training these three," Kakashi began, and his team's eyes widened. "Hell no!" Anko practically shouted. "Your team, you teach em." "For once." She mentally added the last bit. "But you're so good at it." The man smiled despite the glare she sent him. Ma, it's fine. I'm up for it." Kakashi chuckled. Team 7 didn't know how to react to it. All four were torn between relief and worry. Worry because they had no idea what was in store for them, and relief because Anko wouldn't be teaching them anymore. Though they learned a decent amount from her, the woman was batshit insane. Kakashi's laziness was the lesser of two evils. "Then I guess me and the pooch will be watching the old man work." Anko released a dejected sigh at the boredom that was to come. And since the workers weren't really eye candy, or close to her definition of good looking, the woman couldn't even ogle them either. This was gonna suck. The only decent thing that had occurred was the tongue lashing Naruto had given the old man's grandson, Inari, before he and his teammates left for the dungeon. Anko felt sorry for the kid, she honestly did, but his bitching and moaning and the comment he made had made even her want to lash out at him. The boy's father died in believing what he thought was right, and Inari was basically shitting on his legacy for doing nothing but wait around, cry, and do nothing to change anything. The boy had it rough, but Anko knew that others had it much worse. The boy still had his mother and grandfather, some of the genin, and both jonin here didn't have anything of those. Naruto had basically set the kid straight by, for lack of better words, to man up or shut up. The kid hadn't been seen since, but with the amount of time she spent here, Anko thought it had been long overdue in her mind. With Zabuza and Kisame. "So that's the bridge, huh?" Kisame commented, and could help but admit it looked nice. The man wasn't really one for admiring such structures. The fisherman preferred to smash or bring such things down in a manner similar to his colleague Deidara. Though without the lack of being a pansy, explosions, and doing it at a distance and out of harm's way. Kisame much preferred getting in close and personal with his trusty sword. "Yeah," was Zabuza's only reply. The man didn't like the situation he and his group were currently in. He was weary, and with good reason. Kisame hadn't been a part of the seven swordsmen's strongest generation, but only a fool would doubt his power. The man had killed the former wielder of Samahata with a sneak attack, but even that was no small feat to achieve. When the other swordsmen found out, they sought to prove Kisame didn't belong in their group, that he wasn't a real swordsman. Oh, he had the bloodthirst for it, but even then they hadn't accepted the newcomer. It was more or less tradition to do so with the newcomers to see if they had the backbone and balls to be a member of the seven. Too bad for them, the man had simply grinned and proceeded to beat the living shit out of them. The heartless pair had been brought to their knees while Zabuza, Mangetsu, and Amuri had been rendered unconscious. Jinin, being the stubborn and aggressive idiot he had been, didn't let up even when the outcome was painfully obvious. Kisame had gotten bored and then annoyed, and when it had become evident the man wasn't going to stop, did Kisame brutally beat him into a state of near death. The man hadn't wanted to kill a fellow swordsman, at least that's what he claimed, but the man wasn't going to let up and let Jinin try to take his life either, and needed to send a clear message. The small man's heroic nature at avenging his fellow swordsman had been his downfall. Their jest had gotten out of hand, their adrenaline pumping like mad, and Kisame had become the unofficial leader of the seven swordsmen. Even though he didn't outright kill Jinin, the injuries he had suffered ultimately lead to his death when the Mizukage turned on them. Jinin had been the first to go, his injuries never quite healing properly, and made him easy pickings. Mangetsu was next, and had killed a ton of Kiri ninja before he had gotten himself trapped and electrocuted alive by a dozen hunter nin, his clan's greatest strength being used against him. Amuri, last he heard, was MIA, but Zabuza had a gut feeling that she too had perished. Zabuza mentally chuckled as he recalled the Hellcat Kunoichi. While she wasn't the first female swordsman, she was the first to have taken the title without the death of the former wielder of Kiba. Raiga was strong but couldn't hold a candle to Amuri, not one bit. While he hadn't seen it himself, Yagura himself had obliterated the heartless pair. The battle barely lasted a minute when the Kage went full Biju on their asses when he liberated them of their weapons. Abijadama was on a different scale of overkill, if the rumors were anything to go by, and few could escape from its destruction. A well-placed one could effectively annihilate one of the Great Five without effort. Why none had done this before Zabuza didn't know. Part of him also didn't want to know either. Had he been forced to work with one of his former colleagues, he'd be fine. Oh, he'd still be pissed as hell, but fine. Kisame, however, rubbed him the wrong way. The man always seemed to have this look that made him feel like there was some ulterior motive going on. And the worst part was that he'd be unable to do anything about it. Kisame was easily the strongest of the remaining swordsmen, no question about it. His mastery over Samahata was noted as the very best out of all those who wielded it. Mangetsu could use all the swords, even the picky blade that was to his right, but even he didn't have the same level of mastery as Kisame did over the sentient blade. So what's the plan, Zabu? He heard Kisame ask him, if he was honestly asking for his opinion for that matter. We assess and look for an opportunity, Zabuza stated. They've got 6 genin and 2 niken, plus the 2 jonin, plus a summon with them. The man had underestimated the situation last time and nearly died. He wasn't about to make the same mistake twice. Really? Kisame was intrigued. It had been a while since he fought a summon. What kind? Snakes, Zabuza said, and noticed the look in Kisame's eyes shifted. Oh, Orochimaru's apprentice, eh? Interesting. The man grinned and unnerved Zabuza even more. The blue swordsman wasn't taking this all that seriously, and why would he? But a summon was still a big deal and nothing to take lightly. His comment also implied that the man knew, or did, the infamous rogue ninja of Konoha. I take it you met? Kisame shrugged and answered nonchalantly. You could say we've crossed paths. Never got the chance to fight him though, and test my mettle against his. Shame, really. Zabuza didn't doubt the man would have lost at worst, and tie at best. Orochimaru was no master swordsman, an expert in the least, but the man was an experienced Kage-level shinobi regardless. The man had been one of the few ninjas still alive that had ended the lives of 2 previous 7 swordsmen before the current generation came into being. This being before he went against the legendary Hanzo the Salamander. Orochimaru, any of the Sannin really, was not to be taken lightly. His mastery over the legendary Kusanagi no Tsurugi, a sword even the 7 admired for its capabilities, only served to enhance his reputation. Zabuza-sama. Haku bowed, along with Meza and Gozu, as the ninja presented themselves. What's the word? The man asked his group. We've looked around and it appears that Hataki-san is training his genin while Mitarashi-san is watching over the bridge builder with a niken. The masked ninja reported. Where are the other genin? He asked upon noticing they were left out. No idea, boss. We looked around and found nothing. Gozu shook his head. The man was baffled at where 3 measly genin could have disappeared. You got some qualified talent here, Zabu. Kisame snorted and watched as the demon brothers rose to the bait. Both knew they were outmatched, but they were easily ruled by their emotions. Luckily, they were also ruled by fear, and a quick look from Zabuza made the 2 stand down. Now what? Kisame asked once more. We look for those 3 genin, is what? Was Zabuza's answer. We capture them, and the rest will be easy pickings. And attacking now when there's only one of them ain't? Kisame cocked an eyebrow at the flawed logic. It would be easier and simpler to dispose of the lone ninja and old man while they were alone. Then it was only a matter of waiting for the other ninja to come to them. The swordsman's partner had explained how Konoha shinobi placed a great deal of emphasis on camaraderie, and, at times, their logic became overruled by their emotions. When that happened, he'd enact his plan. Would you rather have them learn what happened, escape, and then have us chase down like dogs when they report back to their village? It wasn't as though he could stick around if they went into hiding in Nami either. Zabuza was sick and tired of having to deal with hunter-nin and bounty hunters looking for a score. Most he could handle, but too often it had resulted in a failed mission due to their interference. The last thing he wanted was more shinobi going after them. Kisame was an S-rank ninja and others would think twice about facing him. Zabuza was an A-rank ninja and there were a few decent ninja out there that could match, even defeat him if they banded together. Whatever, this is your show, not mine. The short stack hired me to make sure you get the job done. I'm just a backup plan in case you fuck up again, he stated. Zabuza, however, doubted it was as simple as the man made it sound. He trusted Kisame as much as he trusted Yugura. The man and his group would have to keep their guard up. Then we split up and look for M. If we can't find the brats by noon, we'll regroup here and attack the bridge then. The group nodded, but Kisame grinned at Zabuza's big mistake. With the group separated, his mission just became easier for him. With Naruto's group. Pull me up! Ino shouted as she rose from the water and avoided the snapping jaws of the large fish. Naruto immediately hoisted the girl up from the water with one hand and attacked with the other. The blow struck home, but it wasn't enough to kill the enemy that made a swift retreat. Damn! He muttered and knew the voracious piranha would regroup and would attack them as soon as they went back in the water. The group had finally made it to the second floor, which pretty much tested their capacity as ninja. Unlike the other floor, this one was primarily covered with water, and it required, more like forced the group, to fight underwater. The upside was the fish were easy pickings for Ino and Hinata's techniques. Hinata's control allowed her to improve and spear or skewer the underwater fish they faced. Ino, on the other hand, merely used her right-hand techniques to fry the little shits into twitching messes. Once they were out of the water, of course. Getting electrocuted by one's own technique was just plain stupid. That was the upside. The downside was the fact that they were often forced underwater, and it pushed them lung capacity and skill their limits. Underwater their movement was restricted and their strength and speed several downsized. Whenever they reached land, they took the chance to recuperate and allowed themselves to heal. The group had gotten more than their fair share of injuries and close calls because of the quick enemies the floor held. How much further? Ino huffed, and was really pissed with the floor they were on. The Mimic King boss they had faced hadn't been as unknowing as these fish. The lumbering 8-foot skeletal chest hadn't been an easy fight. The damn thing could shoot cannonballs at them, but at least they were on even footing. Don't know. Naruto's answer earned himself a loud and frustrated groan from Ino. The blonde Yamanaka really hated their current predicament. Look, bitching and moaning isn't help us, Ino. We've been at this for nearly a day, you idiot! Ino shouted. How the hell do we know this route won't lead to another dead end? We don't! Naruto scowled at his teammate, getting annoyed by her constant complaining. He too was pissed and frustrated. On the first floor he could use shadow clones to scout ahead, here not so much before they were overwhelmed by their foes. In this dungeon, it was a matter of brain over brawn, and being quick as hell, too. Their skill in underwater combat and swimming had increased and allowed them to fight better and longer, but even then the combat in this dungeon was not easy. The fact that much like the first floor, this one also had dead ends made their trip frustrating. The enemies here weren't all that tough, but they were numerous, quick to hit and dodge and respawn much more quickly than any other they had faced so far. Even a powerful character could be taken down by small hits if it kept adding up. Sighing and taking a deep breath, Naruto calmed himself. Look, I'm just as pissed as you. He ignored her humph. But like it or not, we got no choice but to keep going, Ino. Said girl did nothing but continue to scowl. She didn't like it, not one little bit, but understood. The girl was just sick and tired of their current dungeon. But she was also worried about everyone outside the dungeon. They had been in here for over 2 days now. Ino didn't know what was happening outside the dungeon, but she was worried. The girl had the impression something was gonna happen soon, and it wasn't going to be pretty. Hinata, how far do we have to go? Ino asked her fellow kunoichi. I don't know, I'd have to talk a look, Ino-chan, Hinata said as she healed herself of her injuries. The girl wasn't all that thrilled in jumping back in, but knew they didn't really have that much of a choice. Even then her focus would be broken if she was attacked, and they'd be back to square one. Plan B? Plan B. Naruto nodded to her, making Ino sigh. Naruto jumped in ahead, followed by Hinata, while Ino stayed behind. As soon as they did were they attacked by a school of carnivorous fish. Luckily the piranha weren't too big, only the size of a small teacup pig, but size mattered little when it came to their numbers. Already was Naruto bitten and swarmed by the little shits. The ninja used 2 kunai rather than his sword or kanabo and coated them in his chakra. The boy slashed, stabbed, and kicked as best he could. His primary weapons were too large and too much resistance occurred in the water for him to use them properly. His sword was better as it was slimmer and less bulky than his kanabo, but his kunai were the better choice for underwater combat. Even then, hitting them was not that simple, or easy for that matter. Fish in general were swift little buggers, and grabbing them wasn't that easy as their fins were pretty damn sharp. But Naruto was persistence, and with Hinata's swait and ninjutsu things were made a little easier. Left and right, up and down, Naruto slashed and blocked rows of teeth that threatened to bite him. Hinata, using her clan's gentle fish, turned her arms into makeshift spears as they lunged and struck at her foes. Other times she would use the water dragon whip or water needle technique to strike her foes or have it surround her in a makeshift barrier that shielded her from harm. For 3 whole minutes did this continue before their lungs began to cry out for oxygen. Both swam upwards and gasped as they breached the surface. But their plan worked as Naruto, despite wincing, grabbed one of the piranhas and tossed on land. The fish were smart, and had to be tricked or coaxed to go near the surface. And since Naruto didn't wish to forego any of his meat, and that they needed to get rid of some of them anyway, it was the best option. Quickly jumping on land, Naruto and Hinata held down the flopping fish while Ino used her clan's technique to take over its body. As Ino's body slumped over, Hinata quickly threw the fish back into the water and watched it swim away. The feeling of taking over the fish's body was easily the oddest sensation Ino had ever known. Unlike the other creatures in the past, this one had no maneuverable limbs such as legs or arms. Breathing underwater was also foreign to her. Even when taking over a body, the new senses and instincts still took some getting used to depending on what was taken over. The possessed piranha swam as far as the Yamanaka could manage. Her chakra wasn't full at the moment, and she would need as much of it as possible when they encountered the boss. One of the technique's downsides was that the further she went from her body meant the more chakra she spent maintaining her technique. It was one of the reasons why Yamanaka traveled in pairs, as their moving partners allowed them to lengthen the use of the technique. As she swam further down, Ino spotted an opening and swam through. The area was large, wide, and had an opening above that led to the surface. It was also guarded by an enormous fish that swallowed the piranha whole. The creature was very quick, and the Yamanaka barely had time to release her hold before the piranha was soon in the belly of the beast. Whoa, fuck! Ino jerked and her breathing became erratic and frightening, as though she was being deprived of oxygen before being allowed to breathe. It was easy to see the girl was scared out of her wits' end. While they could view the world like a video game so long as they were a part of the team, Naruto was the only one that really benefited from the gamer's mind skill. What happened? Naruto asked, but Ino continued to shake and the boy cursed. Whatever happened was obviously not something Ino wasn't going to be talking about soon. Whatever she encountered was obviously dangerous. What the he dash? Naruto muttered as his detect skill flared up, and below he saw a very large shadow swim by. Observe! Boss, ancient fish of the primordial sea, Gansai LV. 31 HP, 4500 CP, 250 STR, 165 VIT, 100 DX, 66 INT, 10 WIS, 9 LUK, 31 Defense, 165 Elemental Affinity, Water Perks, Dense Phycology, plus 50% increase on physical attacks, plus 50% effectiveness towards defense, plus 25% tolerance towards critical strikes, minus 35% effectiveness towards movement in and out of combat. Master, creature of the seas. No penalties from underwater combat, minus 100% combat effectiveness outside of water, will not be attacked by water-based creatures with lower level, minus 50% stats and effectiveness towards all skills if on land. Deadly header, plus 150% increase towards bite attacks, plus 150% increase towards head attacks, plus 85% resistance towards unconsciousness and daze status effect caused by physical means. Description: the Dunkleosteus is a thought to be extinct fish believed to have lived millions of years ago. Apparently this one didn't get the memo. Much like its ancestors, this predator is larger than even the dreaded great white, and easily on top of the food chain. Millions of years of evolution have only made this creature larger and more deadly, and its infamous bony plates make it even more terrifying. However, much like its slow ancestors, this creature is only capable of swimming quickly in short bursts, but even then it's an improvement, and now possesses the ability to create a vacuum that draws in prey before it's too late. Its infamous maw, now outfitted with a series of bony dagger-like teeth, is capable of crushing boulders with little effort, and can slice a man in half. EXP earned? EXP drops? Oh, fuck me! Naruto cursed as the situation worsened. On the plus side, the damn thing would attack both his team and the enemies they faced without bias. On the other hand, it was very strong and the exit was quite a ways off. Not enough that they couldn't make it, but enough that Gonsai could catch up to them and turn them into chum. You're telling me? A still shaken up but calmer Ino laughed mirthlessly. Almost getting eaten would do that to a person. But Ino knew they had no choice but to go back in. Even with the creature standing between them and their potential exit from this place. Exploding shadow clones were an option, but Naruto feared a cave like last time. It had gotten rid of a large amount of enemies, but the underground passage had gotten blocked, and they were forced to continue on. They barely reached an air pocket in time because of it. All they could do now is wait and think it through. They came in together, and Naruto was sure as hell going to make sure they left together as well. Meanwhile, Anko, how are things? Kakashi, followed by his team, asked the woman but received a dramatic groan that resonated with utter boredom. Nice to see you having fun. Go fuck yourself, Hataki! The woman flipped him off ever so eloquently. The genin really wondering how such a woman held the rank of jonin. Then again they also wondered the same about their own mentor. How are the brats? Doing fine. He smiled and she resisted the urge to hit him. What was it about that eye smile of his that made others swoon, but made her want to sock him one? At least the man was now teaching his own students, not like she gave him a choice. I'll bet, she muttered by their slightly ragged appearance that they had gotten a decent workout. Anyway, the old farts here are almost done for the morning so we can dash. Both jonin immediately halted their banter and got into battle-ready position as a mist began to form on the bridge. Both knew that a natural occurring mist did not form this quickly. Everyone off the bridge now! Kakashi ordered. You heard the man! Move your asses! Anko barked out, and the men made a run for it. Not you, old man! She had Tazuna stay behind. You're the one these assholes are after. Brats, guard him! You too, mutts! Tazuna was soon surrounded by 3 genin and 2 niken. The 5 guarding the man in a basic but improvised manji formation with the addition of the niken. The man could not help but release a cold bead of sweat as the mist grew denser and his visibility diminished considerably. Well, a voice from the mist drew their attention. Here we are again. Zabuza chuckled as he appeared from his village's famed cover. I'll give you tree huggers one last chance only. Hand over the old man and no one has to die, he informed them. Besides, it looks like one of your brats is shaking with fear. I'm shaking, but with excitement, Sasuke countered even if it was a half-truth. He was excited to see how he would fare this time, but even he could not deny the fact either he or his teammates would be capable of fighting at 100%. They had just come off training after all and did not have time to eat anything to replenish their strength. You'll be shaking with fear in a moment, kid. Another voice called out, and to the 2 jonins looked out in horror and deep concern they spotted someone they were not expecting. Surprised? What the fuck? There's 2 of you now? A pissed and worried as hell Anko shouted. Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked, ignorant as her teammates were to the woman's outburst. The man didn't answer though and chose to bring up his forehead protector to release the Sharingan. Kakashi knew their chances of survival were very low at the moment. He's strong, a shaken-up Kiba stuttered. His Niken Akamaru along with Hadamaru were both shaking like leaves in the wind. The 2 Niken could use their sense of smell to determine the strength of their opponents, or prey, and since both were scared and looked ready to piss themselves, it meant this man was powerful, and someone they couldn't mess with. As soon as you get the chance, I want all 6 of you to get out of here and hide, the man ordered them. Against Zabuza they stood a chance, and got lucky last time. Against both of these 2 it was another story. Even with them fleeing, there was no guarantee they'd live either. Even then, the chances were higher than if they stayed on the bridge. Who is that? Sasuke asked. His shaking now turned into fear rather than excitement. Whoever the man was greatly unnerved the Uchiha. It was similar to when they first encountered Zabuza, but it was much worse in this case. Hashigaki Kisame, formerly of the Seven Swordsmen, an S-rank nukenin at your service. The man bowed and the genin all paled considerably as their minds processed the information. They all knew about the ninja ranking system. One would have to be pretty dumb or ignorant not to. And they all knew that an S-rank ninja was borderline Kage or an actual Kage level individual. Oh, we're so boned. Kiba voiced his opinion, serving to only demoralize the group further. Anko wanted to slap the kids silly, but it was the truth really. They were boned. So how do you want to play this out? Anko asked her fellow jonin. I'll handle Kisame. Think you can handle Zabuza? He asked back. Probably not, was her thoughts, but instead she said, bring him on, her voice filled with false bravado. Anko would have to bring out all the stops if she was to survive this. She was easily in for the fight of her life. With Zabuza, her chances of winning were low, surviving against him was a higher probability. Against Kisame, she knew she was fucked. Enough talk already! Kisame shouted and appeared before the two jonin with his fabled blade held high. Both scattered just as the sword struck the bridge and caused it to buckle underneath the powerful blow. Wanting a challenge, Kisame chased after Kakashi and left Anko to his colleague. You and that worm of yours are gonna pay for what you did. The man growled, and Anko was slightly unnerved by the threat. Midori, however, made herself known and hissed angrily at the man for being called a lowly worm. Anko scowled at the insult too. But otherwise, the woman merely took out two kunai and had Midori coat them in her venom. The man soon disappeared into the mist, and the only sound she heard was that of Kakashi and Kisame's own fight. 8 spots. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Now, which will be my attack points? He called out from the mist, potent killing intent being released all the while. Anko, however, shook and began to breathe heavily as the seconds rolled by. How about heart? Zabuza suddenly appeared behind her and stabbed his sword through her back and heart. The man's chuckle soon ceased as Anko was replaced with a decent slab of stone. Zabuza, however, sensed a distortion in the mist before a streak of sickly yellow struck out at him. The man jumped away and blocked with his sword as the yellow whip continued to smack against his blade, but his eyes widened as he saw the bridge areas begin to sizzle and melt. Acid? He wondered before he realized his own sword had been used to block the technique, and promptly made a hasty retreat. The decapitating carving knife was a sturdy weapon, but even then it was not indestructible, the acidic technique leaving decent-sized gashes down the middle and dulling parts of the edges. Its ability to regenerate and restore its edge and form was highly coveted due to the instantaneous repairs, but it required a decent amount of blood needed to fix it if more than half of it was gone. Even with the jonin and genin here, it would barely be enough if it kept on getting this badly injured. As he looked at his blade and the damages done to it, Zabuza's mind became clouded with dark thoughts that would make others tremble with fear. You're gonna pay for that, snake whore! He bellowed in anger, the man gaining the faint outline of an oni behind his form. But all he got in return was a series of kunai laced with exploding tags. Zabuza jumped backwards and blocked the shrapnel with his blade, his anger never once going down, but his oppressive aura vanished. Please, if you think your little parlor trick will scare me, think again, dumbass. I was taught by a sick, twisted motherfucker whose chakra was on a different scale of scary. Your killing intent and chakra don't even come close to his. Anko mocked and served to only make Zabuza angrier. Though the tactic was known for making others lose their focus and become uncoordinated in their attacks, the savageness of all also made their blows stronger. A special skill has been created by a spec. Lousy timing. The snake charmer shouted at the pop-up screen. The woman needed to concentrate at the moment, and could not afford any distractions. Come on, short stuff! Bring it! Short stuff? The comment only befuddled the swordsman rather than make him angry. Well, you have a big-ass sword that I assume you're using to compensate, big time, she elaborated. Hey! That's my line! Kisame shouted from the mist. I'm gonna fucking kill both of you. The man fumed and rushed with his sword skyward, the large, heavy weapon crashing on the woman's location, who dodged and sent a myriad of snakes towards the man. Zabuza, though, was quick and sliced the head off the snakes with the kunai. The man had no intention of being poisoned by a serpent anytime soon. Ninpo, Dokujiri, ninja art, poison mist! Anko spewed forth a cloud of purple that rushed towards the man. The man getting caught in the deadly mist of poisonous airborne chemicals and making him caught and gasp desperately. When he could no longer take it, Zabuza fell to the floor where his body made a resounding splash. Shit! A clone! She cursed and began to look for any signs of the man. Look out! Midori shouted as a large spinning blade threatened to bifurcate the woman in two suddenly appeared. The snake mistress barely had time to duck and rolled down as the blade embedded itself on the stone floor. So distracted was she that she did not sense the man's presence as he held a kunai at her throat. Before he sliced it open, though, did the man feel telltale sign of a kunai point on his stomach, a trail of purple appearing on him as he eyed the small but deadly weapon. Zabuza knew there were only two options available: slice her throat quickly enough to avoid being stabbed, or slice her throat and be stabbed and killed by the poison. Oddly enough, the man chose the latter option. Both shinobi gasped and gurgled before falling to the ground and falling apart, Anko in a puddle of earth, Zabuza into a puddle of water. Both clones had served their purpose, and the fight between the two of them continued. While Zabuza and Anko fought their battle, Kakashi and Kisame waged their own. The Sharingan-wielding man kept his guard up against the superior opponent. The former Unbu captain had faced a few S-rank ninja during his tenure in the shadows, but most of them had been S-rank merely due to the crimes they commented or the information they possessed or stole rather than skill. Kisame was all three wrapped in one. He was powerful, possessed a treasured tool of Kyuubi, and was a criminal. The man could not afford any mistakes here and risk leaving everyone at the man's mercy. The problem was that Kakashi was severely out of practice at the moment. The lack of seriously dangerous missions over the years when he left the Unbu had dulled his skills and reduced his stamina. His laid-back attitude had come to bite him in the ass. Gotta say, I'm kinda disappointed really. The man heard Kisame's voice. When I thought about going face to face against the infamous Sharingan no Kakashi, I expected more. A challenge, actually. He tried to find the right word. In his mind, the fight was pathetic and sad. Kisame was barely breaking a sweat, though the mist might have been a reason for it, too. Kakashi didn't rise to the bait like the anger-prone Zabuza. The man knew a trick when he saw one. He had used the same methods countless times before on others in the past. All right, I'm bored. All Kakashi heard was loud sloshing sound before missiles of water in the form of sharks sped towards him. The ferocious-looking water animations tore into the ground where he once stood before he was forced to dodge once more as another projectile made its way towards him. And then another, and another, and another. The parade of sharks did not seem to stop, and Kakashi knew the man was toying with him, like a predator playing with its food. Knowing he couldn't not keep dodge forever, Kakashi blurred through some hand seals and called forth a wall of earth on all sides of him. The water shark striking home, making it buckle in a few nice dents, but did nothing more than that. Kisame, though, took the opportunity to get in close and smash down the walls of earth with Samahata, the man making the act like a mundane task. The earth fell apart around them as Kisame hacked and slashed at the wall, and the ground near it. But in the midst of it all, Kisame noticed the lack of blood and stopped. Kisame also noticed the sizzling of paper and jumped away just as the fallen earth exploded. The concussive force was impressive, and the improvised shrapnel from the destroyed walls forced Kisame to block with his trusty weapon. Hey, I guess he'll give me a challenge after all. If anything, Kisame loved a challenge. With Team 7. Damn it! Kiba growled as they left the hot zone. Fleeing was not the way of the Inuzuka, but even he had to acknowledge they were outmatched and outgunned. The feral boys saw the look on Sasuke's face and could tell even he was upset with their retreat. Upon the battle commencing, Team 7 followed the Jonin's orders and hightailed it out of the bridge. All of them knew that they would not last long and would only serve to be a hindrance if they faced off against an A-rank and S-rank ninja. Though Kiba and Sasuke wished to fight, Both knew only a fool or an ignorant moron would face against superior opponents. The fact that they had just finished training, and weren't exactly at 100%, played a defining factor as well. They'd be lucky to last even a minute against the missing ninja. During their brief time with Anko, the woman told them that being a ninja meant playing it smart, and choosing one's battles, even if their heart said otherwise. At the very least, they would assure that Tazuna was out of harm's way. The man was the target, and they would make sure no harm came to him or his family. But they still felt like their contribution wasn't as great as it should be. Kiba and Sasuke wanted to fight. Their wish was granted, however, as a flurry of ice needles crashed upon the ground in front of them. With their retreat halted, all 5 members of Konoha got into a battle-ready stance. "You won't be going any further," a masked ninja stated before them. "None of you need to die. Zabuza-sama only wishes to have the bridge builder. Hand him over, and you have my word you will leave here alive." Let me think about it. Fuck that. Kiba had no intention of giving up so easily before a fight even began. Sasuke neither, and both males looked itching to prove themselves. Kiba tossed Akamaru a pill that caused the young ninkin's fur to be as red as his name before he transformed into an exact duplicate of his human partner. Both transformed Niken and ninjas soon gained a more feral-looking appearance, hunched over like a predator stalking its prey, and their hands becoming more claw-like and wicked. "Sakura, we'll leave Tazuna to you," Sasuke was all he said as he and his Inuzuka teammate charged in. Both males weren't at 100%, but there was 3 of them, and only one of him or her. "Getsuga, Fong passing Fong." Kiba and Akamaru dual-teamed the ninja with twin drill in order to skewer the ninja. Remarkably, the individual managed to avoid the technique with perfect timing and evasive maneuvers. Sakura was worried. Kiba was one of the fastest genin in the class, even more so when he used his clan's 4 legs technique combined with the passing Fong. For the ninja before them to dodge them so easily meant they were experienced, and even faster than the Inuzuka. "Stand still, damn it!" The frustrated Kiba's shout was reminiscent of a loud growl. "Suetun, Teppadama, water release, gunshot!" Haku suddenly declared and used the water below them to compress and shoot off a large glob of water. Normally it was compressed inwardly in the body, but experimentation had allowed Haku to do so otherwise. The condensed liquid impacted with the 2 feral ninja and sent them rolling. Both weren't out for the count, but they were momentarily dazed. "Hijitsu, Sensatsu Sway Sho, secret technique, 1,000 flying water needles of death!" Haku suddenly declared, Sakura noting the ninja using only one-handed hand seals. An enormous amount of water took on the form of thin needles before shooting towards Kiba and Akamaru. The Inuzuka clan heir and his Niken both performed the Getsuga upwards where the mass of needles wasn't as numerous. While they evaded what was assuredly a painful death, both had received a few decent cuts in the process. Nothing life-threatening or anything that take them out of the fight, but Kiba knew they needed to be careful. This was no ordinary ninja. Their fighting style was reminiscent of those of Kuri's Hunter Ninja, who in turn was based off of his clan's Alpha Division. An elite task force that was known for having precise attacks and techniques focused in killing or incapacitating others with as few moves and wasted energy as possible, both quickly and quietly. While similar and impressive, it was evident it wasn't the real deal, otherwise Kiba knew they'd be out for the count already. "Katon, Gokaku no Justu, fire release, great fireball technique!" A voice from the mist shouted, and a large fireball crashed onto the location of the Kiri ninja. But the masked ninja was very nimble and quick to evade. The technique was fast and lethal, but Haku was quicker. Though even Haku knew it was only a matter of time before the 2 Konoha ninja found an opening to exploit. "Gozu Meizu, where are you two?" Haku could really use the help of the demon brothers right about now. The masked ward of the Demon of the Mist could handle the fight, but it was 3 against 1 and Haku didn't wish to resort to that move unless given no other option. Zabuza had been furious when the 2 didn't show up when they were supposed to regroup. Most likely they got into some trouble that was holding them up, but even then they couldn't fiddle around waiting for the 2 brothers. The masked ninja was going to have to fight solo for the next little while. Meanwhile, "Hurry up!" Naruto gurgled underwater. The ninja's muscles were straining quickly, and he didn't know how much longer he could hold the jaws of death at bay. Literally. Here he was in the mouth of the beast itself, and preventing it from closing shut on him with everything he got. The muscle power it had in its jaws were incredible. Add that it got a boost in biting techniques, and Naruto's stats were only at 60%, while underwater meant he wouldn't last much longer. Hinata and Ino both same as quickly as they could towards the large air pocket, ignoring the attacks from the small group of fish as best they could or batting them away to prevent too much health loss. Their eyes widened as they heard a loud crunch and knew they needed to swim faster and further away from the beast. Their muscles strained and they gritted the pain they felt from the school of piranhas. As they subconsciously crossed their arms in front of them, did both gritted their teeth in pain and felt the air being pushed out of their lungs as something suddenly slammed into them. They were still alive, they realized, though now low on HP, and all their body part weren't severed. To their astonishment, they even saw the lack of piranhas as well, and they were at the edge of the lake cavern's entrance. Gansai, however, was still making its way towards them still, and both Ino and Hinata wasted no time by getting out of the water and water walking all the way to dry land as quickly as possible. The giant fish was so easily deterred though and soared out of the water after its prey. Its heavy body crashing loudly at the edge of the ring of land that separated it from its next meal, snapping its massive deadly jaws at the two kunoichi all the while. Though frightened by the ravenous beasts before them, the two kunoichi of Konoha fought back with everything they could. Both split off in opposite directions to confuse it and give themselves some distance. Hinata struck out with precise strikes of Suiton, while Ino kept it immobile with her lighting release, dissonance pulse technique. The large fish retaliated by sending a jet of compressed water in a horizontal pattern at the two that tore into the rock like a hot knife on warm butter. With her greater speed, Ino managed to get to cover on time. Hinata wasn't as fortunate, and while she injury only nicked her, the force behind it sent her flying through the air and crashed hard into the wall. Her HP very low at the moment, and making Ino lose concentration of her technique, and ultimately freeing the beast. Shit! Ino cursed and appeared next to her teammate in a burst of speed, a green pulse on her hands that steadily began to heal the Hyuga and draw her away from the red zone. Even then it wouldn't be much, as both she and Hinata were on the verge of exhaustion. Hang in there, Hinata! Suddenly their attention was drawn out to the water as the large form of Gansai soared through the air once more. The beast was intent on killing its difficult meal once and for all. Though momentarily frightened, both kunoichi didn't look the least bit worried. Shinigami Kajikoku, Death God Shadow Strike! Naruto's form rose out from the water and struck the airborne fish downwards. Not on the head thought where it was heavily protected, but on the spine where its plates were less dense and more vulnerable. A loud crunch was heard, but the now stranded boss wasn't out for the count quite just yet, despite falling short from its two preys. Geki Rekko, Raging Light Fangs! Needles of light soon began pelting the water creature's form at incredible speed. Both Ino and Hinata using what ounce of strength they could to lend an aid to their teammate in finally ridding them of the primordial predator. To prevent it from retreating back into the water, Naruto created a large amount of clones that all held on tight wherever they could. Some of the clones even began bashing the creature with their kanabo as hard as they could and never once letting up their assault, even as Ino and Hinata were forced to halt their own as exhaustion took them. Gansai struggled and flailed as it suddenly realized the danger it was in. The large creature knew it needed to get back into the water and make a tactical retreat. It smacked two clones out of existence with its large fins, allowing it better leverage in its endeavor, and brought its head back and tossed the original skyward. Not know it had just sealed its own doom. Heads up! A shout from above rang and many pairs of eyes widened before Ino and Hinata ducked for cover. Gansai was going nowhere though, and continued to struggle till the very end before its fate was sealed. A large crash echoed in the cavern that was soon followed up by the sound of flesh being rendered apart. A massive critical blow has been dealt. Ignoring the ping of the pop-up, Ino and Hinata noticed that all the clones were gone, a puff of smoke signaling their destruction, while Gansai was still firmly in place on the ground and its eyes comically having X's in them. It was easy to see why as well. A large stone stalactite was skewering its back and dug deep into the ground. The damage caused by it had dealt a massive blow to the creature and ultimately ending its existence. That is, at least until they returned to the dungeon some time later, of course. Wah! Naruto gasped and sputtered the water out of his mouth as he rose to the surface. Woohoo, yeah! Take that fish breath! No one tries to eat Uzumaki Naruto, damn it! Oh, Kami, that was horrible! Ino finally let her exhaustion take over and let herself fall to the ground. Hinata soon followed the blonde, and both wanted nothing more than to rest their hearts out. Both had earned it in their minds. Swimming to shore, Naruto came into dry land next to his teammates. Hey, thanks for letting me borrow your necklace, Hinata. Though he had to use a hinge to transform into his female alter ego to even use it, Naruto was glad its ability to erase his presence worked for him in disguise nonetheless. The Hyuga thanked her teammate for the return of her necklace and resumed her break. What with you guys? Sometimes I forget you're a stamina freak. Ino huffed and was envious of the boy's endurance during combat. Anko was right when she said it would work well for him in the future, and Ino had no doubts the woman would be trying to work up hers and Hinata's. We're bushed. Give us a minute. Or 10, please, Hinata added. Though they needed to continue on, Naruto supposed a quick break wasn't that tall an order. Browsing through his inventory, Naruto took out some food and passed them to his teammates. Eat up. It'll restore your energy, HP, and a bit of chakra. Both appreciated the gesture and began to dig into the food while Naruto inspected the loot they now received. Okay, what do we got here? Manju Mimikazari, tied flowing jewel earning, rare quality paired ear accessory durability, 65 out of 65 description. Legends speak of ancient times where deities gave selective humans the power to control the oceans themselves. With such items, humans were able to fish more successful and calm raging storms that threatened to destroy their village. All this in the form of simple ocean blue jewels known as the Manju, tide flowing jewel, and the Kanju, tide ebbing jewel. Though used in pairs even separately, they hold a great deal of power. Legends say the Kanju makes the water recede, allowing one to hold harsh waters at bay, and the ability to cause droughts, while the Manju possesses the ability to cause floods, monsoons, and bring forth storm water. Though others theorized they were merely tools that greatly amplified one's affinity for water. Bonus stats: Asterisk increases effectiveness and power of Suiton and water-related skills by 25%. Asterisk decreases chakra required for Suiton and water-related skills by 25%. Asterisk greatly increases bonus stats when paired with the Kanju Mimikazari, tide ebbing jewel earring. Requirements: Primary affinity must be water or have expert mastery of water affinity in order to use. Medium B soul gem, epic quality, status effect, enhancement item permanently grants, instant level up, plus 5 skill points, plus 10 STR, plus 10 STM, grants one the ability to use Jo no Kuchi, Maw of the Tyrant King, skill. Small treasure chest description. A common piece of equipment that pirates of old used before they learned the value of sealing their treasure into scrolls. What lies inside is a mystery, and without the key will need to be unlocked via skilled hands. Requires level 25 basic lock-picking skill to be unlocked. Ah, figures. Naruto knew it wouldn't be that simple. On the plus side, I can always ask Anko how to do it. He could also ask the woman to unlock it herself, but knew she'd be asking for a cut of whatever was inside. Better he learn it himself. There'd come a time where he'd probably need to use it, too, rather than knock the door down with his strength. Sometimes the more subtle approach needed to occur than the gun's blazing one. All in all, it was a decent haul. Not great, but not bad either. The minor stuff like the dense bone plates he got would make for good armor pieces, though the added weight of them would be a bit of a downside in terms of reduced speed. While Naruto would take the chest, he deserved something from all this. It looked like Hinata and Hadamaru would benefit from the loot instead, with the Jo no Kuchi being a biting skill. Naruto wasn't one for being the conventional ninja compared to others, but even he knew would have been weird for a human to know such a technique. Lucky mutt, Naruto didn't see the fairness in it all really. The dog didn't even do anything to help them in all this, for crying out loud. Giving Hinata the earrings and the basic rundown on what they granted her, much to Ino's chagrin for such a useful item, Naruto decided to heal himself up as well before they continued onwards with their mission. Entering the next cave, the group was happy to note that there were no monsters, and were greeted with the sight of a large, vibrant lake brimming with a multitude of fish of different species and sizes. Many of them jumped and splashed out of the water, and Naruto thought a few looked quite tasty. "What do you think, guys? Should we take a few for ourselves?" It was clear there was more than enough for Nami. Taking a few dozen fish they'd otherwise be unable to get elsewhere didn't sound so bad. Though first they need to catch them. "Anyone bring a net?" The boy was greeted with silence, and he knew the answer. "All right then. The old-fashioned way it is." And he knew it would take a while. "On the bridge? Not so cocky now, are ya, snake bitch?" Zabuza laughed, and Anko scowled. The woman was covered in sweat, tired, and had a few bad scrapes and cuts on her person. Zabuza had a few as well, but nowhere as badly, he venom on the blades not affecting him thanks to Haku's antidote. Midori was out for the count at the moment when the man had suddenly changed tactics and went after the genin and Tazuna. Midori had gone after him, and though quicker than the man her size had been used against her. A trap had been set up, and both Midori and Anko fell for it. The man had tossed the Kubikurabocho like an oversized Fuma shuriken and had given the serpent a few nasty wounds as a result. To make matters worse, she soon received the full brunt from a great waterfall technique to the head. It was evident the man had prepared, and with the condition she was in, Midori was out for the count. From then on, it all went to shit. Zabuza had more experience and was part of an elite squad since he was a teenager, which meant more techniques, more strategies, more of everything that Anko currently lacked. As of now, it was evident the man was toying with her as an act of revenge for last time. Her thoughts on what to do next were pushed aside as she felt the air grow colder than any mist could bring forth. Anko's breath was visible in the air, and the woman could see a few snowflakes of all things falling down from the sky. Looks like Haku's using one of Yuki clan's aces in the hole. The man didn't say it, but he was impressed they pushed his ward this far to use the Yuki clan's Makio Hyoso, demonic ice crystal mirrors, of all things. Now it's only a matter of minutes before they die. No one's ever escaped that technique. No one. It was a lie really, but the woman before him didn't need to know that. Anko bit back a retort, no matter how much she wanted to let her anger loose. "God damn it, Anko, you're not going out like a chump. You were taught by one of the most gifted assholes Konoha ever had for Kami's sake." The last thought made her fall short, and Anko had a horrible idea that might just work. Calling up her inventory screen, Anko grabbed something, uncorked it, and downed the vial contents of the liquid, and then tossed the empty vial into off the side of the bridge. Zabuza frowned as the act of pulling something out from seemingly nowhere. It was then that he felt it. A surge of power that was bubbling to the surface and growing viler and stronger as time passed by. "The hell?" Zabuza thought. His eyes widened as he saw dark, pulsing marks spread across her body in a flame-like pattern. The woman's eyes took on a serpentine shade of yellow and developed slits in them. Her hands became claw-like in a manner similar to an Inuzuka's, her muscles pulsed, her canines slightly more pronounced, and her tongue developed a fork in it. His immediate thought was that she was becoming a humanoid serpent, but more accurately she was a human with serpent-like characteristics. "What's going on?" Anko didn't bother to answer the man. Instead, she appeared before Zabuza in a burst of speed and slashed at the man with her claws. Zabuza was unprepared for the newfound speed and cried out as he felt the deep marks rip into him. The man was also unprepared when he felt the blow to his face that temporarily blackened his vision and sent him tumbling away. "What the fuck's going on? Where's she getting this power from?" The look of confusion and daze Anko saw made her grin as she felt the intoxicating power flow freely through her veins. It was as though shackles that held her down had been lifted after a very long time. All of it being thanks to the concoction Naruto had stolen from Mizuki and given to her for private observation. And now, thanks to it all, her strength was increased. No. Not back, the potential and strength she should have had before the seal was placed on her was back. Even then she knew the seal was playing its role in enhancing her skills even more so. She swore she'd never us it, to never rely on the curse given to her master. But plans and times changed. A special skill has been created by a special act. Sealed Curse Seal of Heaven has been unlocked. Curse Seal of Heaven Level 1 skill has been created. Ignoring the pop-up Anko looked at Zabuza and said, "Remind me, what was it the little demon called me?" The woman mocked, her serpentine tongue licking at the blood in her hands, and for the second time this week since he met Kisame, Zabuza felt fear. The man was about to learn a very important lesson. Don't fuck with Mitarashi Anko. Ever. Chapter 24, Total Overkill. Tracking down the woman that called herself Asagao proved easy compared to the other times they tried locating her. All three were on opposite side of the village near the forest when they came across her. All of them thought it to be too much of a coincidence but knew time was short to start investigating. "So you managed to do it?" Color me impressed, handsome. Hinata inwardly frowned at the compliment given to her crush but otherwise didn't show it. Asagao would be lying if she said she wasn't surprised by the turn of events. Part of her honestly thought they would have failed in their endeavors. "You ask us to deliver, we deliver," Naruto simply stated before he followed up with, "Now are you gonna tell us where Gato is?" "A deal's a deal, handsome," the woman stated. The genin of Team 8 blinked at how easily she agreed. All three were convinced she would backstab them, or make a power play of some sort to get out of the deal. Usually it was how these sorts of things went. You're all thinking, "That's it. She's not gonna try and take us out? Aren't you?" The silence and blush was all she needed to know. Kids these days watch too many cliché movies. That aside, inwardly Ino agreed on the cliché movie spiel. "Where's Gato?" The woman merely pointed behind them and into the woods. "Follow the river deep in the forest, and you'll come across his hideout. You can't really see it from here due to the trees and cover on top, but Gato can see almost everything from the top floor." The woman wasn't going to bother explaining how she knew all this. "You better hurry too. I heard he's getting restless and readying his thugs. Me and the girls will make sure the villagers get this." All three they had little choice but to trust the woman at the moment. While it was painfully obvious she had ulterior motives, none of them in any way had caused them harm. Time was of the essence too, so all three headed towards Gato's hideout in order to finally deal with the little shit. All three missed the woman's chuckle and smirk. On the bridge. "Here, Zabu, Zabu, Zabu. Where are you?" The dark sing-song voice of Anko filled the air. The intoxicating power continued to flow through her veins as she tried to find her prey. The woman's tongue flicked out and tasting the air molecules in a manner similar to her familiar Midori every so often. Normally the curse seal of heaven only enhanced a person's chakra and physical attributes such as their speed, reflexes, strength, and endurance to pain and fatigue. However, given the nature on how she reactivated her seal through the dark concoction Mizuki once held, it was different for Anko. Her senses such as smell and visual acuity were greatly enhanced by the liquid and power of the seal. The images around her were sharper and more defined, allowing her to making out details she otherwise didn't notice. Her sense of smell was strengthened to the point she could literally taste the ocean in the air. It was fresh and salty. But Anko ignored all that and tried to focus on finding her prey. Zabuza had gotten several nasty cuts along his chest and arms. Blood was flowing freely now and Anko merely needed to focus on the scent. The mist was Zabuza's domain, but with his injuries the element of surprise wasn't as strong anymore. "Found ya!" Anko declared and launched a whip of yellow, corrosive energy that smacked hard on the ground. Anko wasted no time as she appeared before the injured and on-guard swordsman. The man scowled and winced but fought otherwise, swinging his sword in the hopes of slicing the annoying woman in two. Anko merely cackled, jumped up and disappeared. Zabuza tried looking for the woman but didn't need to go far as he felt an unexpected weight on his blade. The man looked murderous as his opponent was sitting on the infamous sword's broadside with her legs crossed, a taunting and snickering look on her face. "Hiya!" was all she said before she suddenly lashed out with a vicous kick to his face. Ignoring the pain and blood flowing from his now broken nose, Zabuza glared hatefully at the woman, only to see she was no longer there. "What the fuck is with this bitch?" If he had to describe it, the woman's entire demeanor and fighting style was chaotic. One moment the woman was playful and barely putting the effort in killing him, like a child playing with its food, the next she was focused, precise and forced Zabuza to be extra vigilant in his defense. It was not just her fighting style, but her personality as well. Zabuza didn't know much about cursed seals, he barely knew much about seals, period, but could tell that it was affecting her mind just as much as it was her techniques. Tag! You're it! Eyes wide, Zabuza jumped away as the deadly whip of yellow energy appeared once more. The man was a second too slow to fully dodge the technique, brought up his sword to bear the full brunt of it. The man coated the blade with his chakra, but even then he heard a large sizzling sound that was soon followed by the sound of metal falling to the ground. God damn it! Zabuza roared in utter fury. Not only was the woman messing with him, a member of the strongest generation of swordsmen, but she also managed to reduce his blade to half the length that normal was. It was still deadly, sort of, but now he was forced to change his approach and would be forced to repair the blade at a later date. That was going to take time, and by then he'd be handicapped. Sinai Tajashu, many hidden shadow snake hands! He heard the alarming sound of snakes making their way towards him. Assuming, of course, he'd make it out of this fight alive. With Gato sneered as he watched the scene of the bridge. Though he could not make out anything other than the occasional flash of light. The short man was making his final preparations to deal with the ninja and the villagers. Too much, he realized, had happened, and Gato believed he couldn't afford others to know he was involved. Luckily, the man had a contingency plan or two in case of such an eventuality. He'd rather not use them, as even then his reputation could still end up damaged, not as badly, but bad enough that he'd probably lose a few clients in the process. But at this point the man saw little choice. Had Zabuza done his job properly the first time around, he would have dealt with his group with his own men. Tired ninja were weak ninja. Deadly still, perhaps, but not that much. That all changed when he hired Kisame, and Gato knew he'd be signing his own death warrant if he messed with the tall shark-faced man. Most of his men weren't the brightest of individuals. It was how he managed to keep costs down, but some were more experienced, better informed, and had connections in the underworld. Those men had made it pretty clear they had no intention of facing a man who had the power that rivaled one of the Great Five's leaders. Such a plan wouldn't work against him despite their large numbers. So instead the man decided to change tactics and decided he'd send his men off to the village and get rid of any evidence that might bite him in the ass. Luckily no paperwork or trails were linked back to him about his illicit dealings, but if enough people testified against him, he knew his goose was cooked. His money could only do so much for him. Looking away from the window, Gato approached his desk and pressed on the intercom button. Sora Waraji, send the men out and proceed with your mission. Sora Waraji, he asked once more and cursed as the silence continued. Where the hell are those two? The man couldn't afford any more slip-ups and needed everything to be in working order. Bah! Must be faulty wiring, he surmised. It wasn't the first time such an occurrence happened. And with his secretary dead thanks to Kisame's rowdiness, the man had no choice but to meet his goons and hired help himself. Boom! Gato was caught off guard as the doors to his office were unexpectedly blown off. The man ducked for cover as one of them bounced his way before it crashed into his desk with a resounding thud, while the other crashed through the window and fell down below. The wooden structure shuddered and gained a sizable indent from the impact, but otherwise remained intact. Before he could even ponder on what was happening, Gato saw a form flicker in the dust before he was harshly grabbed and thrown to the ground. The man groaned at the pain and soon felt himself being hoisted up and staring into blue eyes filled with anger. For a brief second the man believed he saw a flicker of crimson, but chalked it up as his imagination. Don't bother yelling for help, Gato. You won't be getting any, the masked boy said, and Gato knew what it meant. His thugs, all of his men, were either dead or incapacitated. Naruto hadn't wanted to do it, but upon hearing what they were ordered to do via conversation his group overhead, he knew they had little choice in the matter. We're only gonna ask you once, and once only. Call off the hit on Tazuna and you'll live. The boy, foregoing to say his chances of dying were still a possibility. Gato merely chuckled at the irony of it all. You're too late. Zabuza and his team are already on the bridge, he said before two more ninja appeared. Both were female. One blonde and the other with indigo hair, if their physique was anything to go by. Ino, though, picked up something else as she listened to the man. Who else did you send? Ino demanded, and when she didn't get a response she decided to no longer play nice, and took out a page from Anko's book. Fine, was all the warning he received as Ino quickly took out a kunai and stabbed the man in his injured arm, twisting it all the while. Blood gushed from the wound and Gato's face contorted into one of pure agony. Gag! All right, I'll talk, he shouted, the pain becoming too much for the tyrant to handle. He was many things, a businessman, a survivor, but a fighter and someone who could deal with pain wasn't one of them. Speak! Ino threatened the man with more pain as she gripped the knife more tightly and showed him Dekatsu's bite. Whether it was from fear of more pain or the sudden appearance of a wicked and deadly weapon, or both, Gato spilled his guts. Zabuza W was talking too long to recover. I needed to job done soon. So I hired some more men to take care of it. Ino knew it wasn't everything and pushed the knife in deeper. Ah, no! He begged, but Ino continued to push the blade in further. Ha! I also wanted them to take care of Zabuza's group after they weakened each other. So you were gonna backstab them? Naruto's face was hidden behind his mask, but his eyes showed Gato that he was pissed. Zabuza was trying to kill them, but Naruto had no love for backstabbers. Had they not had orders to bring him in alive, preferably, Gato's head would be ground meat at the moment. You don't get it, do you? Here Gato laughed mirthlessly despite the pain. Zabuza wanted double his payment in exchange for getting rid of you. He blackmailed me. I had no dash. Naruto probably backhanded the man as he knew where it was headed. Naruto was a good bullshitter and he knew Gato was lying to them. Hoisting him up and slamming him on the desk, Naruto bellowed. Who did you hire? Naruto didn't have any subtlety when it came to interrogation or talent in the field compared to Anko and Ino. But the act he just pulled scared Gato to the point he blurted out, Hashigaki Kisame, before wetting himself in the process. Approaching him, Ino yanked out the knife, making the man cry even further, looked him in the eye and said, Thank you, before Naruto knocked him out cold with his armored fist. With the man unconscious for the moment, Naruto browsed through the bingo book screen and brought up Kisame's profile. Hinata meanwhile looked outside the windows and spotted the bridge from here in the distance. What the two saw wasn't good. For Hinata it was due to the bridge being covered in a thick blanket of impenetrable mist, and for Naruto it was due to what he read about Kisame. Oh shit! Naruto paled lightly and both Ino and Hinata heard the worry and, to their concern, fear in his voice. Two things that they knew from experience that Naruto only showed if it was very bad news. Ino asked, How bad is it? As she continued to tie up the man while Hinata healed him. Though Hinata was kind by nature, she believed the man didn't deserve it after all the suffering he brought to Nami. But they still had more questions that only he could answer. Bleeding to death would be counterproductive and the man was no use to them dead. Well, at least for the moment, of course. You know how it said Zabuza was from the strongest generation of the 7 swordsmen. At her nod, hesitant as it was, Naruto continued. Well, this guy killed one of them and came out of it with no injuries. And all of the swordsmen at that time were A-rank threats. Both of his teammates looked worried. A-rank ninja were one of the strongest ninja in the world. Some were close to being crossing the threshold into Kage level. For Kisame to have done this meant only one thing. He's an S-rank ninja, isn't he? Ino's fears were confirmed by Naruto's hesitant nod. Ino knew that there was most likely a chance they weren't going to make out of this alive. Against Zabuza they had a chance, slight as it was, but an S-rank missing ninja was another story. S-rank meant Kage-level individuals, and the power gap between an A and S-rank ninja was huge. Kakashi and Anko were both A-rank ninja, but even then that meant squat. What do we do? Naruto's initial reaction was to say he had no idea. The old cocky Naruto probably would have gone in, act all chivalrous, and hoped everything worked out for the best in the end. But this Naruto knew better. This Naruto was more informed and realistic. The chances of them defeating Kisame was slim to none. The only way they'd make it out of this alive was if they played it smart and prayed to Kami above that they got lucky. Even then Naruto knew it wasn't that simple. Kakashi was still weak, and while Anko had Midori it wouldn't be enough. You guys stay here and watch over him, I'll see what I can do, Naruto informed them. Are you out of your bloody mind? Naruto, you've gotten better, but that ability of yours doesn't make you invincible. This guy's an S-rank missing ninja. Only the toughest of the tough are labeled that, and you're just a genin. You're basically committing suicide. Ino pleaded with him to reconsider. Ino-chan's right, Naruto-kun. Hinata believed in Naruto and his ability to overcome any obstacles that came his way, but this was different. This was a man who had well over 2 decades of experience as an experienced ninja compared to their 3 months. Ino had described it perfectly when she said it was suicide. I know, but what choice do we have? He asked them, and neither one could come up with an answer. We don't have time to come up with something, guys. The longer I stay could mean life or death for the others. I'm going, and that's that. If you two think something went wrong, don't say that. The shout surprisingly came from Hinata. Just don't. Uzumaki Naruto has never doubted himself, and you're not going to start now. You're going to help our friends, and then you're going to come back to us, because you always find a way, one way or another. Even if the chances of him winning were slim, Hinata had confidence that Naruto could somehow come up with a way to foil their plans. Or at the very least catch them off guard and buy them some time. Whoa! Where'd the wallflower go? Ino was not expecting such a speech out of the blue, especially from Hinata. Anko's training really did work wonders. Promise me you'll come back. Please. Hinata looked at him pleadingly, and Naruto couldn't help but nod at the girl's plight. Alright, I'll come back, Naruto informed the girl. Hinata breathed out and got back to work on Gato before dragging Ino away to speak with her. The bridge isn't that far from here, so keep a lookout. The next bit he whispered. If anything happens, grab Hinata and run like hell. Do everything you guys can to get out of here. And go where exactly? Konoha was a day and a half away by ninja speed, and that was with them being on a full tank of energy. Ino appreciated the concern, but the chances of them escaping alive was less likely than them being captured. Look, I'm not as vocal as Hinata when it comes to this sort of thing, but if she believes you can pull a miracle out of your ass, then I'll take it. Just keep your promise, okay? Count on it. The way the two believed in him was moving, to say the least. Naruto never felt so touched by the faith both had in him. With his resolve strengthened, Naruto set out to help his comrades. The boy also made sure he'd be back, because Uzumaki Naruto never went back on his word, and Nindo. Never. On the bridge. Smashy, smashy! Kisame chuckled as he flailed his weapon around and tried to smash Kakashi to the ground. The fight he was getting was pretty decent, not great, but it wasn't as boring as it started. The man watched as Kakashi dodged the strike that made the bridge area crumble upon impact. Kakashi, though, was starting to breathe pretty heavily and sweat covered his form. The man wanted nothing more than to raikiri Kisame, but the technique took too long to stabilize and Kisame never gave him enough time to complete it. His other techniques were countered as well with Kisame's own. The fishman knew a lot of techniques, and many of them had greater power in them than Kakashi currently had. Had this been 3 or so years ago during his time in Umbu, the two could have been evenly matched. Umbu generally had their faces covered to hide their identities. Some, such as Kakashi, at times forewent their mask because their power and reputation had been more than enough to send others packing or think twice before facing them. And that he had no significant other meant showing his identity wasn't going to have those sorts of consequences. It was how Kakashi's reputation had quickly made headway in the ninja world despite his young age. But since the man's time outside of the Umbu forces, his skills had dulled, his stamina had dropped along with his speed and strength. His chakra wasn't as potent either. Assuming they survived, of course, Kakashi made a mental note to start getting back into shape once the mission was over. Ghhhhh! A shout from behind where his genin were fighting was heard. A cold sweat crept up his spine as he heard the shout, one that momentarily distracted the man long enough for Kisame to land a hard blow on his chest and shred part of his arm in a shower of blood. Kakashi was sent rolling into the mist in pain. A few ribs were most likely broken or cracked, and blood flowed freely from his arm. Kisame was toying with him at the moment, and it was evident who the superior fighter was. But toying with the masked ninja rather than kill him outright would be the man's downfall. Despite knowing he hadn't fully recovered and that the following move would leave him severely drained and possibly on the verge of collapse, Kakashi took out a scroll and marked it with his blood. Kuchios, Doton, Tsuga no Jutsu, Summoning, Earth Release, Track Fawn Technique. The man watched as markings webbed themselves along the stone before they disappeared. The next moment he heard the sound of Kisame shouting in pain as the technique worked its magic. Keeping his guard up as best he could, Kakashi walked into the mist and came upon the form of a dog-piled and immobile Kisame. 8 Niken were upon the man, all bearing him down with their weight and incredible jaws. Well, this is new. Kisame had to say this was one for the books. Being held down by a bunch of mutts. Didn't see that coming. The dogs merely bit down harder on the slightly wincing man, and Kisame cocked an eyebrow as Kakashi began to blur through another set of techniques. The trap man sensed the power and concentration build up and knew a powerful technique was about to be used. Alright, I'm bored. Time to get this over with, he announced before a surge of strength filled Kisame's being and he flexed himself with a large guttural shout. The unexpected move and physical feat caught the dogs off guard and many were sent flying, yelping, or desummoned as the missing ninja freed himself from the jaws of the beasts. Kakashi looked on in disbelief as the man grabbed his largest and physically strongest Niken, bull, and smacked him with his sword. The Niken disappeared in a cloud of smoke, and one by one many of them were suddenly defeated by the man's ferocious attacks. Suetun, Baku Sui Shoha, water release, exploding water colliding wave. Kakashi's eyes nearly popped out of his head as the water user spat out a great volume of water from his mouth. Kakashi had heard about Kisame's prowess in water ninjutsu, but the amount of water that surged was simply immense. The water waves that smacked into his Niken made them disappear, while Kakashi grunted in pain as he felt the water threaten to crush him and force the air out of his lungs. Nearby, both Anko and Zabuza's own fight were halted as they too were struck by the large amount of water. Both lost their concentration and the technique sent them tumbling over the bridge and swirling in the mass of water that trapped them. Zabuza felt his leg strike something harshly at a very bad angle and shouted in the water. If he had to guess by the pain he felt, it meant the limb was broken. Anko for her part tried to grab a hold of something to stop the spinning. The woman felt nauseous by the violent waves that tossed her around like ragdoll to who knows where. Her concentration became too focused on surviving the technique by holding on whatever she could to stop the spinning that she suddenly felt drained, tired even. The woman realized as she held up for dear life that the cursed seal's power had receded and cursed at the lousy timing. The genin of Team 7 and Haku looked on in confusion as the waves reached them and Kakashi's team had to root themselves into the ground with chakra so they weren't swept away. Had they been closer to the center of it all, the act would have dislocated their legs and knees. Haku was safe in the Yuki clan's mirrors, but even then the pressure caused the mirrors to develop small cracks. When it was all over, all the tired ninja ironically found themselves all gathered together in one spot. Kakashi drew the correct assumption that it wasn't a mere coincidence. Whatever the man was planning, it involved finishing them all off, including his allies, in one go. His hunch was correct as Kisame stood in front of them with a knowing smirk. Well, I'd say it's been fun, but it wasn't really. Kisame had hoped for a decent fight, but it seemed like he wouldn't be getting his wish granted. Oh well, better luck next time. Suetun, dieback dash. The man was momentarily surprised as 10 ninja, clones and the original most likely suddenly appeared between him and the Konoha ninja. 5 were being carried and had a look of deep concentration on them, while the others merely set them down and blurred through their own hand seals. It was then that his mind finally registered the warning his sword gave off, and Kisame could only say 3 words. Oh, fuck me! Katan, Rasenho no Justu, fire release, spiraling phoenix flame technique. 5 clones declared as 5 large flame-covered avian raptors burst into life. Futon, Shishizenka no Jutsu, wind release, lion's battle roar technique. The other 5 Narutos declared as a very large bellow rang throughout the battle area. Many were forced to cover their ears, formed the sheer loudness of it all. Both the wind techniques and fire techniques merged before crashing onto the other half of the unfinished bridge. The combined technique was a veritable hell as the intense heat and flames licked at the stone, making some even melt as well due to how hot it was. The ninja, and the small crowd of civilians behind that were brave or foolish enough to help fight, could not help but look on in surprise and awe. Here was a mere genin, the lowest rank of ninja not counting academy student, who was using a technique that was easily A if not S rank in terms on an infamous missing ninja. The boy made it look so easy that made some wonder if he wasn't actually a higher rank ninja in disguise. Nearly a minute passed before Naruto cancelled the technique, and watched as the clones he had disappeared. The blonde had yet to regain all his chakra and was still recuperating from his time in the dungeons. One-offing Kisame like this seemed the quickest way to deal with the man. But at least it got the job done. Phew, gotta admit I wasn't expecting that from a genin. They all heard a voice call out from the smoke. Konoha ninja, and even the ninja from Kiri, had horrified looks as Kisame emerged from the flaming wreck with barely any harm done to him. His cloak was singed and all in a few places, but other than that the shark man looked relatively unscathed by what was thought to have been a sure kill move. Wa? Naruto couldn't believe his eyes. 9 Kagebunshin, 5 of them using his strongest technique and the others amplifying it with his strongest wind technique, and it had been all for naught. Over 1/3 of his chakra was gone because of that stunt, and he had nothing to show for it. S-rank missing ninja or not, it should have at least done some harm. What the hell's that? Tazuna shouted, and everyone was rendered even more stunned as they spotted the reason for his befuddlement and terror. The object was long, easily greater in size than Kisame himself. It possessed downward-facing scales running along the entirety of its length. The scales were so long that they resembled the fins of a shark. It even possessed a mouth with a row of sharp teeth, also reminiscent of a shark's. Is that the sword? Sasuke wondered and couldn't keep his eyes off the object/creature that the man wielded. You guessed it. Kisame grinned, and with barely any effort he lifted the enormous blade, looking at it fondly. Same head's known as the most terrifying blade of the 7 swordsmen for a reason. If you strike him, he'll shred you to pieces. If you use ninjutsu, you'll only make him stronger and stronger. This guy's got quite the appetite. Here the sword shuddered and shook, making the ninja weary at what was going to happen next. A sword that could render ninjutsu and taijutsu useless was not something that had thought to face. But he's also a picky eater, and fire ninjutsu gives him an upset stomach. Kakashi's eyes widened to the point they'd threatened to pop out of their socket. The young veteran ninja immediately understood what the deadly swordsman was referring to. Run! Too late! Kisame shouted with glee and unleashed hell in the form of a blazing firestorm from the mouth of the beast. An epic amount of hellfire was spewed forth from Samahata in a manner similar to an overpowered flamethrower. The flames engulfed everything in its path as it made a beeline towards the ninja, both ally and enemy alike. Team 7 and Anko could only look on as Naruto was engulfed by the flames before they had time to react. Kakashi felt his heart shatter as the last remaining legacy of his mentor and wife died by the missing ninja's hands. Kisame, you backstabbing son of a bitch! Zabuza shouted as he surrounded himself and his word with a dome of dense water, one that was soon covered with a thick sheet of ice and dropping the temperature of the water at a frightening rate. But with his injured leg he knew he'd be unable to outrun it. Diving off the bridge would only make it much worse, and potentially kill him with the other injuries he possessed. Zabuza was no fool and knew that even his most powerful Suiton technique would at best slow it down before it was overwhelmed. The raw power in Kisame's physical strength was outmatched only by the man's unfathomable strength and ninjutsu and ability to use Samahata in ways its previous wielders could not. But part of him also wasn't surprised that Kisame turned on him. The man had a history of betrayal and had been the first to betray the 7 swordsmen. The result of which had caused a chain reaction that, in Zabuza's mind, ultimately led to the once famous group's downfall. After Kisame's stunt and following actions to come, many began to distrust the 7 swordsmen. Most of them had been open about their ire despite their prowess. However, powerful as he was, Kisame's forte was in water ninjutsu, not fire. So with his Suiro, water prison, combined with Haku's Hyogendomu, ice rock dome of magnificent nothingness, the pair had a chance at surviving so long as they continued to strengthen their technique. Midori! Anko shouted as she, Hato and Kakashi's group were enveloped around the coils of the great but injured serpent. The large familiar would be sore for the next little while and wouldn't be able to fight either due to the risky stunt. For added protection, the senior jonin slammed his hands to the ground and summoned up a large slab of stone made from the bridge. The wall that bore bulldog sculptures wasn't as large as he had wanted it to be due to a sudden and unexpected increase in exhaustion. The man prayed it would be enough, but his mind wandered as he thought of Minato's son. Kisame continued to unleash the red-hot flames with greater intensity than Naruto did with his combination technique. The attack making the ninja sweat from the heat and strain as they were pushed to reinforce their techniques even more. Luckily for them, it was over in a minute before Kisame cancelled the flow of chakra, but even then they felt drained. The man spoke truthfully when he said Samahata was a picky eater. Fire chakra, especially those from intense techniques, weren't exactly Samahata's favorite meal. The sword didn't mind a little bit but too much, and it became moody and difficult to deal with. Making the sword barf out the meal was the only way to get it back under Kisame's control. Even then, the man had not expected such a technique from a genin. He'd have made a decent challenge when he got older, but Kisame had a job to do. Ah well, there'll be other fights, he thought, and got back to business. It came as no surprise as Kisame saw the burnt corpse of the genin he just snuffed the life out of. The man ignored the blacked and smoking body as he made his way towards the exhausted ninja. However, Kisame immediately felt pain as a blade sliced into his back. The crashing of a metal head into his kneecaps soon followed it up, and the infamous swordsman was forced to ground with an audible grunt. Another strike came at him, but Kisame was quicker to react despite his predicament, and he sent the attacker flying. Blood was drawn, but it wasn't fatal. Bone was shattered, but it was easily reparable. Years of combat had hardened his willpower and ability to endure pain. Plus, with Samahata, the man's injuries would heal pretty quickly. But it didn't mean the monster of the bloody mist wasn't pissed. And a pissed-off Kisame was someone that no ninja or civilian alike wanted to face in their entire lives. Kisame glared as the attacker, which was replaced by confusing as he saw the form of the Konoha genin alive and well. No way in hell could a genin survive that. Kisame doubted his opponent was a genin-level shinobi. Bukijutsu-wise it was the case, ninjutsu-wise, however, was another story. The kid was most likely an Umbu or one of Konoha's secret aces in the hole, that despite his young age. But even then it still didn't explain how he managed to avoid being burnt alive. The S-rank missing ninja wasn't the only one amazed by what transpired. The genin of Team 7 had grudgingly come to terms with the fact that Naruto had become much stronger than when he was an academy student. But even though he was stronger, the sight before them was pushing it. Despite being glad he was alive, Naruto should not have been able to survive from the flames. Much like his genin, Hatake Kakashi couldn't believe what he witnessed. Part of him thought it to be a trick being played on him, that his mind was unable to cope with the fact that Minato's son had survived. But to his utter relief, the man's mind wasn't being tricked as he saw the looks of his own team, and heavily panting but smirking Anko. Naruto was alive, but it begged the question. How did he survive? The Konoha jonin wondered. Phew, that was close. Naruto muttered but groaned/whined as he saw Kisame's wounds healing up and closing. Ah man! Are you shitting me? You can heal? Afraid so, pint-size. Kisame gave him a predatory smirk and subconsciously Naruto gulped. His quick equip of the crimson cloak of the fire rat had saved his ass, and restored much of his lost energy, his use of the henge disguising his uninjured form, but that wouldn't mean squat against the man's sword. Naruto kept up his guard, but Kisame was upon him quickly with Samahata raised up high. Now you're gonna dash. The missing ninja's words were caught in his throat as his strike was ultimately blocked. Naruto had half expected to be sent flying from the strike, and instead the dark-garbed boy was saved from injury in the form of a large frog. Said creature was incredibly large in size, possessing orange skin that was covered in blue markings, and bandages wrapped around its body and left foreleg. Around the head was a necklace with 7 large beads with the kanji for loyalty on the central, largest one. The amphibian was wearing samurai armor, composed of a plate cuirass and arm guards paired with traditional samurai pauldrons. Its arms were crossed over its head and holding the deadly blue blade at bay with what looked like complete ease. What the hell? A bewildered Kisame thought out loud just before Samahata sent out warning vibes. Years of using the deadly weapon had taught Kisame not to doubt its judgment, and the shark man's decisive action saved his life. Out from the mist, and hundreds if not thousands of white needles flew through the air and made contact with the spot the missing ninja once stood. The seemingly harmless-looking projectiles, easily piercing the hard materials as if they were nothing more than paper, obliterated wood, stone and metal alike. Kisame growled as he landed away what could have been a nasty hit. The swordsman readied himself and Samahata for what was to come next. But what he didn't take into account was who made themselves known from the sound of wooden sandals clacking on the hard surface. Next, he saw spiky white hair tied into a ponytail, with two shoulder-length bangs framing his face. Red lines were seen under his eyes which extended further down his face, and his overall attire bore a striking resemblance of a kabuki player. Well shit! Kisame frowned as he looked upon a legendary and well-known ninja. Who's that? Sakura asked out loud, getting a look of disbelief from Anko and the other two Kiri ninja. Seriously? Who the fuck doesn't know about their village's own legends? A tired Zabuza wondered but groaned weakly. The combination technique had saved his ass, but the intensity of it had pushed him and Haku to their limits. Both were virtually spent. Standing itself required focused effort and teamwork on their parts. Me? Here he chuckled and made Anko, and to an extent Kakashi, groan as she knew what was about to happen next. I'm the man who makes women's hearts soar, the one who makes children look up in awe and make men wept with jealously. I'm the one, the only, legendary toad sage, Jiraiya. He finished with a pose. Who invited the nut job? Naruto broke the silence. Gah! Jiraiya faltered forward off his summon by the indignant response. God damn it! Punks these days have no respect for their elders and the classics. We didn't have any respect for it back then either. Kakashi and Anko mentally deadpanned at the man's whining. All the while the ninja from Kiri couldn't wrap their minds around what was happening. One of the supposed legendary ninja and member of the Densetsu no Sannin, legendary 3 ninja, was this eccentric whack job before them? Either the rumors were sugar-coated or this guy's gone nuts. Kisame briefly thought before blurring through some seals and summoned a large missile of water in the form of Shark's head. The technique was launched at the group, but Jiraiya calmly brought out and unfurled the scroll. Fukusian, water sealing method! The words escaped his lips with ease, and to everyone's amazement, the technique was being effortlessly sealed inside the scroll. If there was any doubt about his partner's words on the man's strength, Kisame didn't doubt them now. Despite specializing in water ninjutsu and swordsmanship, the Kiri shinobi was proficient in other elemental techniques as well. Nowhere as good, but enough to make lesser fighters scamper. But Kisame had an inkling the white-haired man could very well do the same with other elements too. Despite wanting to go on fighting, much like his former crew, the man was a fighter, not a quitter. Kisame begrudgingly knew when to cut his losses. Kisame was only ever afraid of 2 people despite having a great deal of respect for them. The first was his partner, Itachi, and the second was his group's leader, Pain. The man didn't even want to think of the hell those 2 would put him through if they found out he was captured. Escaping was the lesser of 2 evils at the moment. Though weakened from the fight, barely though, Kisame summoned forth a dense mist that briefly overpowered the sight of everyone nearby. But much like the water shark he had originally called forth, the mist was absorbed into the scroll and their vision was restored in seconds. But it mattered not, as the Kiri ninja was nowhere to be seen. All the ninja had their guard up, and Jiraiya knew that the man was no longer sticking around with the toad sage around. You're 100 years too early if you think you can catch me off guard with that level of ninjutsu, he called out before looking at the group. Sorry I'm late for the party, but it looks like I made it in time. But before Jiraiya could say anything more, the group heard sobbing from behind them. Hey old man, you okay? Naruto smiled, thinking Tazuna was shedding tears of joy. I'm fine, it's just my bridge. He openly wept as he saw the state of his beloved super bridge. While he was happy that Gato was taken care of, the old man couldn't help but become saddened at the sight of what he and many others poured their heart and soul into making. Oh. Naruto, as well as the other ninja, was at a loss of words as he gazed upon the bridge. It's not that bad. All it needs is a little makeover, maybe some duct tape, and it will be good as dash. Crash! New? Whoops. An embarrassed Naruto chuckled nervously as a large section fell into the water below. The sight making Tazuna become wide-eyed before he began to bawl even louder in Kakashi's shoulder. That's the problem with you kids these days. No self-restraint, it's all about the collateral damage. Jiraiya shook his head. But you got the job done, so that's good. My super bridge. The client of Team 7 continued to wail some more. An uncomfortable Kakashi attempted to console the man while Anko and Gamma kept a close eye on Haku and Zabuza. While the two had surrendered, begrudgingly of course, there was not telling what they would pull and Anko wasn't going to take any chances. The bridge aside, what are you doing here, pervert? Anko asked the now groaning man. While she respected Jiraiya for his prowess and ninja, his personality and perverted nature had been another thing. It didn't bother her as much compared to other women as she enjoyed the books he made. They gave her good ideas. What she hadn't cared about was the way he portrayed someone Anko knew was based off of her. Anko was not a size 32C and loved getting spanked with a paddle. That's my job. First of all, yeah? You're not a pervert, you're a super pervert. I know! She cut him off. Damn straight. He spoke much to the genin's confusing and slight disbelief. But I was on my way to see old man Sarutobi and came across one of your snakes. Thought it belonged to my old teammate, so I decided to investigate. When I got it to tell me everything, I rushed over here as fast as I could. And here we are now. He finished. So what now? Kiba asked. We did our job and got Zabuza and the masked dude, so all that's left is getting Gato. Already taken care of. Ino and Hinata are watching over him now. Ino said she'd try and get whatever she could out of him. Naruto shuddered lightly as he remembered the look she had as she said that. Both his teammates were being too influenced by the woman. So all in all, it's mission accomplished. Wait, are you saying we're free? A voice from the growing crowd behind them called out hopefully. I guess? Naruto's answer left the crowd tear-filled and joyful as it finally became evident that the tyrannical businessman no longer ruled them. The ninja cracked a small smile, but a warning flash alerted him that something was wrong with Hinata and Ino. Fuck! Ino and Hinata are trouble, was all Naruto declared before he rushed off towards Gato's hideout with a shunshin. Anko was worried and wanted to follow her student regardless of her current condition. However, her body would not listen and the woman nearly fell had it not been for Kakashi's support. Gaki, wait. Shit! Gamma, look after M. Jiraiya ordered the toad before chasing after his godson. It was evident that despite his looks he took after his mother if his act first and think later attitude was anything to go by. To civilians and animals alike, Naruto was nothing more than a barely visible blur as he passed by them. All that mattered at the moment was getting to his teammates before anything else happened to them. Luckily, the hideout wasn't that far from the bridge and Naruto would arrive there under 5 minutes. But as fast as he was, the blonde's speed was no match for that of an experienced and powerful ninja like Jiraiya. The man appeared by Naruto's side just as the hideout came into view, and before he had time to react, Jiraiya grabbed a hold of him. Even then, though, the man would admit the boy's speed was impressive for someone his age. Not as good as himself and his former teammates' own when they were younger, or close to Minato's, but impressive still. The kid may act like Kushina, but he certainly inherited Minato's talent. The fact that he sensed his teammates were in trouble was a testament of such talent. The Toad Sage didn't know if it was a good thing, or a bad thing. Or even both, actually. Let me go! Naruto all but ordered the man as he tried and failed to wiggle out of Jiraiya's hold. His teammates were in trouble and Naruto needed to help them. Brat, calm down already! Jiraiya spoke lowly but with authority. Going in there without a plan's only gonna end up with you dead and that ain't gonna help your team. Now shut up and follow my lead! The man released him and made his way up the side of the building. Unlike his traitorous teammate Orochimaru, Jiraiya was no censor. The man knew the basics of it, but no more than that. Even then it allowed him to sense the presence of 2 shinobi up above, faint but still there. Both Naruto and Jiraiya made their way up the wall of the building as quickly and quietly as they could. Upon arriving they noticed a broken window and spotted 2 downed and bound kunoichi. Jiraiya had to hold Naruto back from rushing in and giving away the element of surprise. Using hand signs that told the boy they were okay, Naruto glanced at them both and Jiraiya saw him become visibly calmer. Both were still breathing and the fact that he still sensed them meant they were alive, merely unconscious. Sensing no one, though he wasn't the greatest at it, both of them entered the room and heard shuffling coming from behind a very large bookcase. Evidently the corrupt tyrant of Nami had a safe made. "I wouldn't bother you too. I knew you were coming from a mile away," a familiar voice called out before Asal came out of the safe. "Hey, handsome," she chirped upon seeing Naruto and casually went about her business as though nothing was wrong. "You know her, kid?" Jiraiya asked. Whoever this woman was, a real beauty in his mind, she was more than she appeared to be. "She helped us out. Gato would still be in control of Nami if she hadn't helped." Naruto summarized it. "What are you doing here? What's it look like I'm taking my cut?" Here she waved a large wad of Rio before it vanished with a puff from her hand. "Gotta thank you for your help, handsome. You made all this much easier for me. Sorry about your teammates, though they didn't give me much choice. Don't worry, they'll be fine in the next little while," she assured Naruto when he looked ready to go on the offensive. "Besides, by the time they come to, I'll be long gone." "Sorry to disappoint you, but that's not going to happen." Jiraiya didn't know who she was, but despite her assistance in the mission, the man wasn't about to let her go off scot-free. "Ah, yes, Jiraiya of the Sannin. Shouldn't you be looking for research material in a hot spring somewhere?" Jiraiya didn't bite into the bait, and the woman looked oddly calm as she stared down at the legendary ninja. It was as though she wasn't taking the matter seriously. Something that few could actually do before breaking down into a nervous sweat based on the man's past experience. Either she's cocky or she's confident she can actually escape from here. Either way, though, Jiraiya wasn't going to let it happen and moved in quickly to intercept her. Just when he was within less than an arm's length of her did the man suddenly buckle under his own weight. The man was forced to a knee as his world felt as though the gravity had suddenly been increased to incredulous levels. Being an expert on seals, Jiraiya had been taught how to detect seals and knew various ways to neutralize them. The amount of people in the world who could catch him off guard with them was few in number, and could be counted on one hand. "Impressive," Asal commented as she easily moved past him. "Normally an ordinary man would have been sprawled and left immobile. Looks like there's credit to your reputation after all." She smirked. "Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique." Asal looked at the large volley of metal stars flying towards her with utter boredom. The woman countered the move by unleashing a gale of wind. The woman, however, was mildly surprised when 5 doppelgangers of Naruto suddenly appeared with their weapons held high. The woman's smirk never left her features. Just as Jiraiya was about to break free from the gravitational hold that pinned him down did the man hear 2 words he never thought he'd hear again. "Kongo Fusa, adamantine sealing chains." Chains made of dark red metal suddenly sprang forth from the woman's body. Each found their mark and wrapped themselves tightly around a clone and the original like a constrictor. Naruto suddenly felt weakened as such as the chain touched him. The sensation he felt wasn't like when he was having his chakra drained, rather it felt like his chakra was being cut off from him. "Well, boys, it's been fun, but I have places to go and people to see," the woman announced before she made her way to the window. "Hey, handsome, it's nice to see that other members of the Uzumaki clan are alive and well." Naruto had no idea what the woman was talking about as she said those words. But as he gazed on the woman's form did he see it ripple lightly. Gone was the dark brown hair fashioned into a ponytail, it was now replaced by short locks of dark crimson. Her skin remained fair, unblemished, but became paler, which only enhanced the look of the deep red lipstick she wore. She wore a unique kimono with one side not covering up her chest. But even then a fishnet shirt underneath covered up her modesty. Had it not been in the midst of battle, Jiraiya would have taken notes, for future material. "See ya." She winked before her body flickered out of existence just as Jiraiya finally broke free of the seal. No dust, clouds or leaves were visible as she disappeared. The woman was simply gone. If I hadn't known any better I'd swear she used the Hiraishin, Flying Thunder God technique. The thought wasn't that comforting. The man was one of the few alive who knew Minato wasn't the creator of the technique like rumors made it out to be. While Minato had made the technique famous, Tobirama, on the other hand, had rarely left others alive compared to Jiraiya's student. If knowledge got out that an Uzumaki of all people, and a woman at that, knew such a skill, it would not end well. The man recalled Hiruzen saying that it had been rumored that the Uzumaki clan had assisted the man in the technique's development. There had never been any proof to back such claims, and with the clan's demise and Yizu in ruins, there was no way to know if such claims had truth to them. The man didn't doubt she wasn't an Uzumaki like she claimed to be. Her use of Fuinjutsu and the chakra chains were enough to confirm otherwise. They were similar to Kushina's own, albeit in a different color compared to the gold ones the late Kunoichi had. But that didn't mean a thing. The old saying blood was thicker than water didn't mean the woman was on their side. Jiraiya had seen family members kill one another for the most trivial of reasons. But the man had bigger problems to deal with now. Hey, what did she mean by Uzumaki clan? Jiraiya cursed as one of the problems just presented itself. I saw how you reacted. You know what she meant, didn't you? As much as I'd like to explain Kid Dash, no, you're not gonna fucking weasel your way out of this like he does. Naruto heatedly interrupted. You know something and I know Sarutobi knows something, too. You know who my family was, so you might as well come clean and stop making bullshit excuses. The boy scowled. Despite ninja being meant to keep secrets, this was one secret Naruto had always wanted to know the truth about. There was no way in hell he was going to be denied knowing the truth. I wasn't gonna kid, Jiraiya began, knowing lying wasn't going to help him and would only alienate his godson from him. The man could only imagine how he'd react to that tidbit of information. All I was gonna say is now's not the time nor the place. When we get back to Konoha, we'll speak with the old man. Some skeletons are kept locked away for a reason, even if only temporarily. Sound good? Naruto's scowl lessened, but it never left his face as he gave a curt nod. The genin got to work and began unbinding his teammates, while Jiraiya took a look inside the safe. Using his superior strength, Naruto propped them up against the wall and took out some smelling salts, the same ones that were once normally used whenever Hinata had one of her fainting spells. What the hell? Ino's groaning was followed up by a wince when the headache finally kicked in. What hit us? Asagio, or whoever she claimed to be. The woman hadn't been all that forthcoming with her name, but they'd have to use it for now. Apparently, she used us. There's a shocker. Ino wasn't all that surprised, really. But she was surprised she was still alive. The woman had taken them out with no problems and could have easily killed them. Which begged the question, why didn't she off us? She wasn't complaining, Ino loved living. But the Yamanaka was curious by the event. My guess is because she didn't see you two as a threat and because she wasn't looking to kill either, Jiraiya said as he entered the scene. Who's that, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked as her surroundings became clearer to her. Believe it or not, that guy's Jiraiya of the Sannin. If both weren't cognizant of what was currently happening, they were now. Both Kunoichi looked at the man in disbelief, and Ino with slight disappointment. It wasn't every day one could claim they met a famous ninja. I thought he'd be better looking. Ino's comment elicited a whine from the man. And younger. The last comment caused storm clouds to form above the kneeling man. I may not have the goods like I used to, but I'm still better looking than most my age, damn it. You don't see me using jutsu to look younger. The man felt a tingle up his spine the moment he said that, and made a note to avoid Tsunade for the next little bit. Ino-chan, that's not nice to say. Hinata's comment perked the man right up. No matter how true it is, her inner bad side added. At least one of you greenhorns knows a little about respect. Neither Ino nor her fellow blonde cared for the comment. So a Yamanaka and a Hyuga are your teammates, huh? That's a different than the usually set up. Next you'll tell me Anko's your teacher. All three genin stayed silent and looked away. Are you kidding me? Jiraiya shouted. You lucky bastard! You're the only guy in your team? The man didn't know whether to be jealous, happy, or worried for his godson. Even Minato didn't have this much luck. Were these kids older, he'd be using this sort of thing as future book material. Then again, they were teenagers and ninja, but even then Jiraiya had his morals and knew when to draw the line. No. Hato's part of the team too, Naruto rebutted uncomfortably while Hinata giggled lightly and Ino chuckled. Looking to change the subject, Naruto asked, What did you find? In a nutshell, a lot actually. Check it yourself, I made sure it was free of traps. The man assured him. Though Naruto shot him a questionable look, the man did fall for a trap not that long ago that had him at the woman's mercy. Naruto didn't know what it was, but damn if it didn't look useful. Entering the vault, Naruto's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he saw the contents. The boy spotted safe deposit boxes, jewelry, and a ton of cash. There was even some miscellaneous items lying around such as weapons, armor, and scrolls as well, to name a few. Impressive, huh? Jiraiya spoke behind him. But also sad. If my hunch is right, and as much I want to be wrong, this stuff here is a result of bloodshed. Everything you see here was most likely taken by force or earned illegally. And the worst part of it is that it can't be traced back to where it came from. No ledgers, no papers, nothing. The man knew what he was doing, which doesn't help us all that much really. Jiraiya informed him. Ano, is it me or does it look like some of it's been taken recently? Hinata asked as she and Ino came into view. Sharp eye and the girl's right. That Asagio character took a large amount of stuff from here before she flew the coop. The man proved his point by showing the scattered Rio bills and open safe boxes. Jiraiya had dealt with enough men of Gato's type to know he'd keep all these things neat and organized. It also made him wonder if there had been papers in the safe, but Asagio made off with them. I'm surprised she didn't take all of it though. Would have been really simple to do from what I saw. Well, she did say she wanted to help rid Nami of Gato. Even if she ended up using us, this is proof she wasn't completely lying to us. Naruto put in his 2-piece, but Jiraiya wasn't completely sold despite how it turned out. I mean, she could have just killed you two otherwise and not leave anything for Nami. Though Hinata paled lightly at the prospect, while Jiraiya and Ino wanted to smack the tactless Jinchuriki, the boy did have point. The woman could have easily run off with everything, but she didn't. There was more to Asajo's character than she appeared to be. So wait, as far as everyone knows, this money doesn't exist, right? Ino began, and Naruto immediately saw where this was going. Ino, he began. The girl's got a point, kid. Naruto was shocked that it came from Jiraiya of all people. Hey, this here is a result of bloodshed and lost lives, but then again you could say the same thing about the missions we take already. But seeing as how this will be used to help Nami here. The man took 3 large stacks of money and gave one each to the genin, much to their shock and Ino's glee. That's 300,000 Rio each, and it barely puts in a dent to what's here. But isn't this wrong, Jiraiya-sama? Hinata felt off from taking the money, knowing where it came from felt wrong to the heiress of the Hyuga clan. It's only wrong if you take it all, kid. Look, here's a lesson I learned long ago. Ninja are supposed to steal and cheat others all the time. When it comes to stuff like this, you gotta learn to take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves, but at the same time make sure you put it to good use and don't get greedy. Here all 3 gave Ino a look. Hey, was Ino's indignant response as the Yamanaka realized she was being stared at. Anyway, look around and see if there's anything worthwhile, but the money and jewels are off limits. Nami will need all the help it can get before it gets back on its feet. Chop, chop! Jiraiya ordered the group. Guys. Ino stopped them as something dawned on her. Where's Gato? Sure enough, the room behind them was empty and Gato was not visible in sight. Shit, you think he came too? No way. Ino shook her head and elaborated. After you left, I got him to talk some more and knocked him out with a poison Anko-sensei taught. Gato was out like a light and wouldn't be up for a good 2 hours unless given the antidote, or a shot of adrenaline. Ino didn't bother stating the obvious fact that Gato was also bound and injured enough that he wouldn't be walking properly for the next little while. Hinata stopped the bleeding, but that was the extent of it. You'd also be dead too, Jiraiya noted and observed the room with a critical eye. It couldn't have happened while you were unconscious. We would have sensed him, and I doubt Asagio wouldn't have wanted him to scamper off. And if my hunch is right, Jiraiya knocked his hand on the wall a few times before he found what he was looking for. Bingo, a handprint device. This thing scans your DNA and the pattern in your hands, and despite a hench fooling others, it won't fool this thing. The chakra shell interferes with the read. This means our mystery woman made off with him. But why would she do that, Jiraiya-sama? Hinata asked more out of curiosity than concern for the man. Retrieving him for Konoha had been part of the mission, but it hadn't been all that vital. That, my dear, is a good question. I can think of a few good reasons, but without Gato here or any information, we're not going to be able to solve the matter anytime soon. Jiraiya frowned before ordering while he pondered the new series of events. The genin meanwhile rummaged through the hoard that was Gato's secret stash. Some of the safe boxes had lovely pieces of jewelry that Ino was fighting the impulse to take for herself. Others had other things in them, such as alcoholic bottles, most likely expensive ones. Others had scrolls on techniques that, while interesting at first, were only common-based ones. Most likely they were kept as trophies or for whatever reason. Rummaging through some more, Naruto finally hit pay dirt as he came across a useful scroll. Beginner's Nito Ryu, 2 sword style. LV1. Next LV 0% per 100%. An old and highly sought-out weapon fighting style that was based on the teachings of the legendary Kensei, Miyamoto Musashi. This fighting style is based on the use of 2 wielding swords, or weapons, simultaneous and to deadly effect. The beginner aspect of the style teaches one how to use one weapon offensively before moving on to the defense and countering aspect. Asterisk passively increases the power of primary weapons by 20%. Asterisk passively increases the striking speed of weapons by 20%. Asterisk passively increases the effectiveness of weapon techniques by 20%. Asterisk passively increases the effectiveness of dual-wielding weapons by 20%. Hot damn! Though his face was hidden behind his mask, Naruto was very pleased with the find. The swords and weapons he found, though decent, weren't quite as good as his own weapon. Most likely they were merely trophies taken from those who pissed Gato off. Naruto had half expected to find a decent weapon within them, but it wasn't to be apparently. Silently, Naruto put away the scroll in his inventory box and kept on looking for any other potential goods. Whoa! He heard Ino from the side and saw her storing at a fairly large scroll Hinata had found. Well, I'll be damned, Jiraiya commented. A summoning scroll. A minor one, but it's a summoning scroll either way. You don't see those every day. That's a summoning scroll? Naruto had never seen one before. Said scroll was twice the length and width of a normal scroll with blue and had blue markings with brown stripes along the ends. What does it summon? Come on, Hinata, open it. Hinata giggled at her crush's enthusiasm and unfurled the rolled-up parchment. Only a few names were seen and all of them were crossed out, symbolizing their end. Looking some more, the group finally came across the name of the summoning clan. Otters? Ino knew it was going to be a minor summoning clan, but she had expected more than mere seafaring weasels. What the hell could otters do anyway? Splash around and look cute. Hey, I said it was a minor summoning clan, didn't I? Even then you shouldn't underestimate them, otters are far from weak. The man internally gloated that they weren't as cool or tough as the toads though. What they lack in strength they make up for it in creativity, intelligence, and speed. Otters have been known to kill crocodiles and large creatures by dragging them into the water, choking them, and drowning them. Imagine what the summon variant, which is much bigger I might add, will do to you if pissed off. The thought of drowning and being dragged to the depths of a watery abyss flashed through Ino's mind and caused her to pale lightly at the thought. It was probably best not to badmouth them. So who's gonna sign it? Ino hadn't really put much thought into having a summon of her own really. Especially one with the otters despite the picture the toad sage painted. I'm good. Doesn't feel like they'd go well with my fighting style anyway. Anko had said that a summoning clan was used to complement or enhance one's fighting style. Naruto didn't know any water ninjutsu, but it didn't really mean he should sign with an animal clan just for that reason alone. Guess it's yours, Hinata. And me? The Hyuga was surprised by the turn of events. Why me? Why not? You've got a water affinity. They could probably teach you stuff other Suiton users don't know, Naruto added. He was guessing, but who was to say it wasn't the truth? But what would my clan say? What would my father say? Here her head lowered and her team winced. Both of them knew that even with her improvement in confidence, the girl's father still cast a pretty big shadow of influence over her. Even with Anko explaining the reasons for her learning techniques outside the clan's teachings, quite a few of the more traditional Hyuga clan members of the main family who were set in their ways had not been pleased with the decision. The way people thought rarely ever changed overnight. Look, kid, I don't want to come between you and your family. I tried to stay the hell away from clan business altogether, especially when it came to a village's noble clans. But you have to ask yourself, is not learning this really that big of a deal? Ninja who don't branch out become stagnant, plateau, and then become dead weight. Those who do branch out are not only more likely to live longer but also end up being someone others can rely on to watch their backs on the battlefield. I'm not saying you should rely on your summons, Kami-sama knows how some hate that. The Toad Chief popping into his head as he said this. But wouldn't it be better to have an ace up your sleeve if things go south and everything else fails? Think about it. Hinata stayed quiet as she pondered the man's words. But Jiraiya smirked as he saw her grip on the scroll become tighter if the whitening of her hands were anything to go by. Part of him wondered if he should have gone into sales and if the world wasn't so messed up as it was. The man had a feeling he'd have retired long ago, on a beach filled with buxom beauties catering to his every need and desire. That actually doesn't sound half bad. The man jotted down the idea for future material, while the genin returned to work. Sometime later. Oh, thank Kami, you brats are all right. Anko pulled her students into a tight embrace. The act scaring her genin for one simple reason: Anko never hugged, ever. You okay, Anko-sensei? Ino asked before she yelped out. Oh. That's for scaring the hell out of me, Blondie. Anko frowned before doing the same to Hinata and making her yelp as well. You too, Pale Eyes. And she's back. The genin thought as the woman they knew, loved, and feared returned to them. What are they doing here? Naruto nudged his head in the direction of the two surviving Kiri ninja. Both were bound with ninja wire and Zabuza was missing his sword. The man looked pissed too, and Naruto didn't doubt his missing weapon was the reason why. That and he was being held prisoner. These two have some explaining to do. But first, Anko marched over and took off the dragon mask from the fake hunter ninja. The face of a young and beautiful girl wasn't what Anko had expected to see. Better than a heavily scarred face or one that only a mother could love, she thought. Hey, I know you! You're Haku from the other day. Sakura recalled the girl. You know her, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked and blushed lightly as Haku smiled at him. He had to admit Haku was very pretty. Unbeknownst to him, his teammate gained an impassive look and Naruto's detect-killing intent skill briefly flared up. Oh ho, the Hyuga's got a crush on him, and a jealous streak too. The Toad Sage couldn't help the smirk silently appear on his face. The boy really did take after his father. Yeah, I know her. The Sakura explained how she came across the pink kimono wearing individual. She was collecting herbs and I thought I'd help. I didn't think much about helping her at the time. Actually, I'm a boy. Haku corrected the pink-haired kunoichi, much to everyone's surprise, with Zabuza being excluded, of course. What? But you're prettier than Sakura and Ino? The proclamation got him looks of pity from Kakashi and Jiraiya. There was a sentence that was guaranteed to earn you an ass-whopping. Hey. Both kunoichi looked murderous at the moment, and Naruto felt like he was staring at two predators that were ready to rip him apart piece by piece. The blonde was saved by the Inuzuka heir's laugh. No, you're not. Kiba smirked and gained looks from the other ninja. You can fool those guys, but you can't fool my nose. Right, partner. Kiba earned a bark of agreement from the white Niken. So she is a girl? Tsunami slowly asked. No, I'm boy. Haku rebuked calmly. No, you're a chick. You can't lie to an Inuzuka's nose, babe. Kiba confirmed. I'm a boy. Haku countered back strongly. Girl. Boy. Girl. Boy. Girl. Boy. Girl. Alright, enough of this shit. Anko decided there was only one way to settle all this. Which in typical Anko fashion meant invasion of privacy and personal space. Anko appeared next to the ninja and to the astonishment of everyone present, proceeded to grope the ninja on the chest and nether regions. Zabuza was left stunned by the act, along with Sakura and the civilians of the house. Kiba as well as Sasuke were wide-eyed, and to a lesser extent Hinata. Ino and Naruto, however, were not all that affected by the act due to them being used to Anko's odd tendencies. Okay, analysis complete. 2 boobs and no measuring stick. You're a girl, case solved. Anko announced and removed her hands from the now identified female. Is she always like this? The missing ninja had heard rumors about the woman's reputation, but seeing it was completely different. You don't want to know. Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Anko's genin informed the man. Alright, so spill. What's with the whole denying you're a chick crap? Anko asked red-faced Kunoichi. Because I'm not. A still blushing and highly embarrassed Haku informed her. Never before had someone ever touched the ninja in such a way. Anko blinked once and twice before she looked at Zabuza. What the hell do you do to her? Me? I did fuck all. The man ignored the look Tsunami gave him as she covered her son's ears. I raised Haku to be who he was. She. Anko corrected the man before a thought suddenly crossed her mind. Wait. Have you been calling her a he the whole time you raised her? She asked. Yeah, so? The man received incredulous looks from everyone. Hey, asked me to raise a boy, no problem. I don't know how the hell to raise girls. Don't bother asking what I did when puberty came along. The women in the house could only imagine and sent the man dirty looks. So rather than learning how to deal with it, you pussied out and thought it would be okay to raise your gender-confused tool as a boy. Well, good going, dumbass. Your excellent parenting skills have made Haku into a transgender. A trans what? The man had no idea what the woman was talking about. Transgender. Someone who's born genetically as a male or female but identifies themselves as the opposite gender due to their own choice, or in this case, upbringing. Anko explained. So while she lacks the tool downstairs, she doesn't see herself as a girl but a boy. The woman stopped as she gave Haku a look over. A very feminine and attractive Bishonen type boy you'd love to have your way with day and night, but a boy nonetheless. The last comment earned the woman a variety of looks ranging from shock to slightly perversion. Jiraiya was taking notes, and was pretty damn happy he had come across Anko's summon. Zabuza merely looked annoyed, and slightly befuddled. And this is bad, why? The man didn't really see a problem with all this really. If Haku was okay with acting and identifying himself as a boy, it was no skin off his nose. Plus it allowed him to dodge the whole feminine crap despite the monthly visitor. No way was Haku going to see any boys soon. Not on his watch. Wait, I'm confused, so if Haku's a girl. Naruto ignored Haku's rebuke. But sees himself as a dude, what does that mean if he's attracted to guys? Does that mean he, gay or straight? Or dash? Naruto stopped when Jiraiya decided to cut in. Kid, take it from me, the more you think about it the more it hurts the head. You're better off not thinking too deeply into it. The man advised, and many in the room decided to agree with the man. It was too damn confusing. Speaking from experience, pervert? Anko smirked as she saw the man stiffen briefly. Let's change the subject and talk about the elephant in the room. The man gave the haughty-looking woman the stink eye before he looked at the group once more. As it stands, Nami is free from Gato's clutches. What happens now determines whether you two stay alive or not. Jiraiya looked at the 2 Kiri ninja. No offense, but you two did try and kill Tazuna here and only switched sides when Gato and Kisame backstabbed you. What's stopping you from killing him when someone else sets their eye on this place? Tazuna and his family paled at the notion. None of them had actually thought of that scenario. Gato and his thugs were taken care of, but what was stopping another tyrant from doing the exact same thing as he did? Zabuza merely scoffed. This may shock you, old man. Jiraiya twitched at the jab. But unlike the walking fish stick, I don't do betrayal. Tell that to your bingo book profile. Anko shot back. Zabuza didn't say anything but knew the woman had a point. The man wasn't about to say anything but knew that the Konoha ninja had all the cards at the moment. Look, I'll admit I betrayed my Kage, but that's only because that son of a bitch betrayed us first. The younger ninja were confused by the declaration, but the seasoned ninja were intrigued and allowed the man to explain. I don't know all the details and reasons, but ever since the First Great War, a lot of people in Kiri developed a fear of ninja with bloodline limits. Somehow some morons started believing that those with bloodline limits were the ones causing the wars. Zabuza continued. Yeah, we all know this story. It's not uncommon knowledge despite Mizu's state of lockdown. Anko interjected and prevented everyone from hearing the boring history lesson. Yeah, well, did you also know the fourth Mizukage only made it worse? At first, it wasn't that big a deal and nothing more than distrust. There were more people who didn't believe in that crap than those that did. Then that little shit Yagura was put into office and went on to say that those with bloodline limits were the cause of the wars. Didn't help that the Kagaya clan decided to attack Kiri and take down nearly a third of our ninja population before we stopped them. The man himself had been a newly initiated member of the swordsmen during the twilight years of the Third Great War when the battle took place. It had been a bloodbath that only served to break the camel's back. The Kagaya had not been an easy clan to deal with despite their savagery and lust of slaughter in battle. When it came to fighting, they were also effective tacticians and strategists rather than the stereotypical dumb and battle-prone bandits. This was a clan that had survived the era of warring states, a nearly millennia-old bloody period in history that had seen the end of countless clans and bloodlines. And while the Kagaya didn't have the same number of members back when they first joined Kiri, or the same number with awakened bloodline limits, their fearsome battle prowess hadn't waned in the least. The fighting had lasted 3 days before the last of the Kagaya were brought down, but by then the damage had been done and many in Kiri started to believe in Yagura's words. After all that, everything went to hell, Zabuza growled, making the ninja except Jiraiya and Kakashi to tighten their stance. The chakra suppression seals and reinforced chakra wire the Sannin had placed on him assured that he was not going to go anywhere or do anything. But it was better to be safe than sorry. People started fighting one another, clans with bloodlines were being persecuted and slaughtered into extinction or forced into hiding. Even those who helped them were cut down. Zabuza spared a short. The Yuki clan, much like the Hozuki clan and Kagaya clan, had been a powerful clan of Kiri before the bloodline purge took place. The Hozuki and Yuki being two of the founding clans of Kiri. The purge had done a terrific job, in a horrible way, at reducing their numbers. Haku's mother had been one of the smart ones and went into hiding before it all happened. Even then it ended up for nothing. Sad as it was, Haku was most likely one of the few remaining members of the Yuki clan, if not the very last. I'm all for a fight, but when I fight I do it for a reason and for a cause. I'll fucking kill out of duty and personal vengeance, but I will never kill if there's no grounds for it. The man shouted, his breathing becoming rough and heavy as he looked at the group. Due to past exploits, the 7 swordsmen had that reputation, and members both old and new were labeled as merciless butchers the moment they became one. That's what the bloodline purge was all about. Nothing more than killing for the sake of killing, and the only purpose it had was to make us weak. Kiri was being destroyed. I had to do something, Zabuza said. And you had the brilliant idea of thinking if you cut down the head honcho it would end it all? Jiraiya thought the man a complete idiot if he thought he could go against the Kage and win. He could respect his dedication to his village, but stupid was still stupid. Especially if said Kage had been a Jinchuriki with complete control over his Biju. At least if the intel given to him was accurate. Judging by the man's look, Jiraiya surmised Zabuza knew it had been a stupid idea in the end, too. Well, can't say I blame you for trying, even if you did fail spectacularly at your job. Zabuza scowled at the man, but otherwise he remained silent. But I believe you, the man added. Come again? Ino didn't believe him to be serious, her teacher being just as skeptical as her student. When you've been around for as long as I have, you pick up a few things and your judge of character becomes sharper than most, the man explained. Yeah, and the fact that I subtly injected my own cocktail of true serum swimming through his veins had nothing to do with it either. Anko shook her head. Such concoctions weren't all that effective on shinobi compared to torture and a Yamanaka's mind walk, especially healthy and strong ones such as Zabuza. But if weakened it worked well and they were more open to talk than they normally would be. But I've got my eye on you too, and the sword stays with me and the seals stay on until I say so. Unless you'd rather be left hogtied in the basement and until the hunter ninja arrive? The man hit the nail on the head as the Kiri ninja let out a frustrated growl. We don't have a basement. Tazuna's comment caused the ninja face fault at his stupidity. Remind me to never take you gambling, old man. What I just did was called a bluff. It's what we ninja do. Secondly, Making you a basement wouldn't be that hard to do really with a simple Doton technique. The man rolled his eyes in annoyance while Tsunami shook her head. Her father was going to be laying off the alcohol for the next little while. Any questions? Yeah, where's Gato? Zabuza growled. That little shit's got a lot to pay for. Not only for the backstabbing but also because he knew Goza and Meizu were probably dead because of him hiring Kisame. The man had an inkling Kisame was the cause of their sudden disappearance. The thought of the traitorous swordsman only made him even angrier, both because of the second betrayal and loss of his men, and because Kisame hadn't lost his edge either since his defection. If anything, the man only grew much stronger since they last met one another. Zabuza angrily knew that while he had not slouched around during his time with the resistance, he had not improved all that much either. Sorry to say, but he's indisposed of at the moment. You won't be seeing him ever again. The comment earned Jiraiya a frustrated sigh from the man. But if it will make you feel any less bitchy, here's the pay he owed you and a little extra. The white-haired ninja tossed Zabuza a scroll that was easily caught by the swordsman. But if you ever target Konoha Shinobi or Nami ever again, you'll wish you never crossed me, boy. The man emphasized his intent by releasing a potent burst of chakra and made the man go completely stiff as he saw his own death in various ways. Got it? Got it. Zabuza wasn't going to argue. The stunt Jiraiya pulled pushed away all doubt about the man not living up the reputation of a powerful ninja. Were they to fight each other, Zabuza had the distinct impression he would have his ass handed to him on a silver platter. This was a man who had gone against the legendary Hattori Hanzo of AIM and lived. Few could boast such a thing. The only man stranger than Hanzo at the time had been the Sanin's teacher himself. All right then. The man's demeanor did a complete 180. Now that that's settled, we can move on to making sure Nami's properly taken care of and better prepared so this doesn't happen again. You two are gonna help and make up for attacking these guys. Jiraiya gave both Kiri Ninja a look that left no room for argument. Yeah, you guys have fun doing that. My team and I are done our mission, so after a few days we're out of here. Anko informed the group. Our job was to make sure Gato was taken care of and acting as your backup. Hataki and his grunt's job, last I recall, is to guard Tazuna until the bridge was done. She cackled as the other team realized what they meant. Finally kicking in, ain't it? You guys are gonna be here for a while. Enjoy. I'm gonna go sleep my ass off, mama's earned it. Kakashi-sensei, I don't ask for a whole lot, but for the love of Kami, please tell me we're not staying that long. Kiba practically begged the man. Unfortunately, we have no choice. Had we brought Tazuna back to Konoha before all this happened, we could have left. Even though Tazuna lied, nearly got us killed, and essentially rendered the contract null and void. Each word only served to make the elderly bridge builder feel worse. Since we didn't report back to the Hokage to work out another contract, and decided to complete the mission anyway despite said lie, we have no choice but to complete this one. So because we continued on despite being misled, we're forced to complete the mission? Sasuke asked in a disbelieving and angry tone. Kakashi shrugged and blamed politics for the fine print of it all. The boy only became angrier when his teacher more or less gave him the answer. Sasuke wasn't all that knowledgeable on bridges, but it didn't take a genius to know they'd be stuck in Nami for quite some time. Are you kidding me? This is bullshit. Kiba howled at the unfairness of it all. Fine print, bureaucracy, and politics were a pain in the ass. Kiba didn't want any part of it if all they did was cause unnecessary work. Can't we just say we failed? We could. Kakashi nodded and Kiba looked hopeful. But purposely failing a mission just because we didn't want to do it anymore results in us being put on temporary suspension. In some cases, it also means being demoted to a lower rank. For you guys, it would mean losing your headbands. So either way, we're fucked and stuck here until the old man bridge is done. Griot. The Inuzuka really hated his job at the moment, and wished they had turned back when they had the opportunity. C rank turned A rank, maybe even S rank, boasting or not, this sucked balls. Welcome to the life of a genin kid. I'd say it gets better, but it doesn't. Jiraiya barked out a laugh as Kiba took a swing at him. The Inuzuka was quick, but for a ninja of Jiraiya's caliber, he was more or less moving in slow motion. A few days later, the time that passed by in Nami was much more easygoing compared to the past week or so. The people of Nami no longer looked depressed or hostile towards one another. With their food supply from the underground lake feeding the masses and fishermen allowed back into the ocean, the populace was slowly getting back to their feet. But even then it was far from joyful as it seemed. While many celebrated the fact that they were finally free from Gato's tyranny, others were in no mood to partake in the festivities. Families were broken, homes were lost, and many wouldn't be seeing or regaining either one of them. Gato's rule ended, yes, but even then the man's actions would continue to plague and haunt others for the rest of their lives. Some would finally come to terms with it, others would struggle, and some would not. Several villagers had come asking them for help in finding their lost family members, and Anko, Kakashi, and Jiraiya had been forced to deal with them. None made promises, as there was no information or leads telling them where they were in the first place. "Is there anything we can do about it?" Naruto asked his teacher, and merely shook her head. "As much as I'd like to, Naruto, there isn't," Anko replied sadly and rubbed the spot where Jiraiya applied the new seal around the curse mark. Even with the new seal, Anko still felt the itch in the back of her mind. It was like a soothing voice that made her feel at ease and promised protection and strength. Evidently the potion she had taken had not only strengthened and unlocked the seal, but also changed the way it tried to make her give into its dark power. Anko remembered the rush of euphoria and power that pulsed through her as the kunoichi skills and senses had been increased to their utmost peaks, the feeling of invincibility. It had been a sensation she had long since forgotten, almost lost even. Jiraiya had informed her that the seal he applied hadn't been absolute. On the plus side, even with it sealed away, Anko felt stronger than she used to be. It was as if some of her old talent had been set loose. The bad news was that contrast to the imperfect version of the seal she originally had, the stunt she had pulled resulted in the newer version being stronger than ever. And it wasn't going to go dormant anytime soon. The seal expert had given her a few tag seals should she need them. "Better safe than sorry," he had said despite her willpower. "Anko-sensei?" Hinata called out. "Are you alright?" Fine, it's nothing." The woman dismissed her student's worry. Anko was the one meant to worry, not the students. Then again, Anko wasn't your blue-collar jonin teacher, or ninja really. "Anyway, brats, we need to keep looking." As good as everything is, some of Gato's men might still be hiding somewhere. Not all of them were cowards, and some could pose a threat if left alone. That had been the reason why the group hadn't head out after the battle. That, and they didn't want to arouse suspicion that they up and rearing to go while the others were still recovering. But Anko had made a good point. Better they stay a little while longer and make sure all the bad element was gone than regret it later. The group continued to take a look around before Naruto spotted an odd statue at the edge of Nami, away from prying eyes. The moment he moved towards it and placed his hand on the large fish-like monument, did something wonderful happen. "Congratulations! You've discovered a significant landmark. As a result, and due to your benign reputation with Nami no Kuni, you've unlocked the ability to fast travel between villages. Fast travel, this is a unique and very useful ability that allows one to instantly travel from one location to another no matter how far the distance. There are some exceptions, however. A downside is that one cannot fast travel to a hostile or neutral settlement, cannot do so during combat, and cannot do it if said village is under attack or landmark is destroyed." "Fast travel? What's that?" Anko asked. "Something very useful, Anko-sensei." Naruto laughed and smiled at their luck. "Fast travel basically allows us to move one place to another, no matter how large the distance, instantly." All three kunoichi were floored by the revelation. The applications of such an ability opened up a lot of possibilities. "Does this mean we don't have to walk all the way back to Konoha?" "Nope." Naruto grinned. "What do you mean, nope?" Ino thought he said they could. "Huh! No, I meant nope as in we don't have to walk, not nope as in we do have to walk," Naruto explained. "So we don't have to walk?" Hinata asked. "Yes," Naruto answered. "Yes as in no, or yes as in yes?" Anko questioned. "We don't have to walk, okay." Naruto wasn't going to repeat himself. "This ability will allow us to leave and be in Konoha within seconds. So does that mean it's like the Yondame's Hiraishin no Jutsu, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked with a hint of worry. "Doesn't that mean others could do the same?" "Kami, I hope not," Anko knew how deadly the Haration was. The woman had seen it being used in the last Great War by the Yondaime. Entire platoons were downed in seconds before they knew what happened. A person could blink only to see the enemy fall down lifelessly. The last thing they needed was the enemy knowing the technique, and Anko was concerned this Asagio might somehow know it. Nah, I'm pretty sure it's due to my ability, Hinata. Besides, it doesn't work that way. Naruto began to explain. Fast travel's usually only possible if your relationship with another location is above neutral and if you've found an important landmark. Otherwise it won't work. So there's no way it could be weaponized? Anko was relieved when the boy shook his head. There was one less thing to worry about. Oh, thank Kami. So does this mean we can go home now? With Hato's nose, Naruto's tracking skill and detection skill, and Hinata's Byakugan, I'm pretty sure everything's solid at the moment. We haven't come across anyone since we began searching 3 days ago, was Ino's argument. You just want to blow the money you earned in the malls. Naruto smirked all-knowingly, ignoring Anko's comment of, what money? Hey, what Ino does with Ino's money is none of your business, Whiskers. Ino gave the boy a face that was met with his own. Alright, lovebirds, break it up. Look, we'll search for a couple more hours, but if nothing shows up, send Jiraiya and Kakashi a clone to inform them and we'll start heading out. Sound good? All three genin merely smiled or grinned, and despite wanting to look serious, Anko couldn't help let herself smirk. The bragging rights she'd get would be awesome, too. How many genin actually got to go and accomplish an A-rank mission turned S-rank? Meanwhile, the short man felt a twinge of fear, perhaps even more than a twinge, as he felt himself being harshly dragged to an unknown area. Whoever that short-haired bitch was had messed up with the wrong man. And he'd make sure she'd suffer for it. All it would take was to find out who had him, and with a bit of persuasion and bribery, he'd be on his way. Feeling himself being forced to the ground, Gato soon felt the back that covered his face being taken off and glared at the men. His glare soon turned to confusion as he saw the suits they wore, elegant and high-end quality ones if he even saw them. Gato, Gato, Gato! What am I going to do with you? A voice from the darkness chuckled. Fear gripped his heart like a vice as he heard the voice. The short man saw a fancy suit-wearing individual, a bald head with an intricate tattoo, and eating from a hot pot. To the man's left was a pipe with intricate designs, and in his hands were a series of rings with various characters on them. It didn't take a genius to know who the man was, and that Gato was most likely never living the place alive. Harakichi-sama! A fearful Gato stuttered. Why wouldn't he? Before him was the supreme godfather of the Yakuza. A man that had raised Gato and later betrayed.